Good morning and welcome, everyone. It is Tuesday, March 12th, 2024. Let the record, it's our 9 o'clock board briefing meeting. Let the record reflect that we have 4 commissioners at this point in time. I think our 5th one will be joining us, as far as I know, shortly. Commissioner French is on Zoom. Thank you. The background there.
You can come inside.
Look at that background. Yeah.
So we will get started though with Mike Burgess, our lobbyist, with the wrap up of the legislative session.
Thank you. Morning, commissioners. You hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. You are correct. We did finish session Thursday night, 6 o'clock. Pretty uneventful last few days. A week ago today or Monday, they had announced a budget agreement. And once a budget agreement is announced, pretty much means they're just doing the final touches to finish everything up. Every year there's a handful of bills that are necessary to implement the budget. So those are the bills that kind of work on the last few days, along with the 3 budgets, both operating, capital, and transportation. Just from a high level of observation, I think I had told you before the session was a little different in that there never really seemed to be a huge dominating issue. I think at the end of the day, the initiatives probably were, and you're aware of those 3 initiatives that they did put on the ballot, and then the other 3 will not go to the ballot. And that was done, with a week to 10 days to go in session is when that all kind of came together. So the last week or so was just putting the finishing touches on everything. As for the bills that we've worked on, the first thing you have there is a bill list. Nothing new here, other than all of them the ones that are on the list here have all made it to the governor. 1899, you'll remember that's the wildfire bill that was pared down a little bit, but did go to the governor. One I would highlight for you, the urban growth area bill, that's the land swap bill that's being signed by the governor tomorrow. So the question for you all, if there's one of those bills besides the urban growth area bill, because it's already going to be signed, if you feel like you do want to communicate support to the governor's office, you could do that. Would want to do that relatively soon. So maybe that's something that you all can talk about internally or decide if you want to do. I don't think it's a huge necessity, but if you'd like to, now would be the time to do that. The governor will have another 3 weeks to sign bills. And it's possible, I just was looking through one of the bill signing lists. It's possible a few of the other ones on this are going to be signed tomorrow. And then there'll be bill signings throughout, probably at least 2 or 3 a week until everything's signed and done. So if you have any questions about any of those, like I said, nothing's new on that list. We've talked about those throughout the last couple of months.
Questions or thoughts for Mike?
Mike, are there any you think he might veto that would warrant us wanting to send a letter of support?
No, Commissioner, good question. No, I don't get the sense of that. I've had some outreach from folks in the governor's office already on a couple of them, just wanting to clarify what our position was and relayed that to them, in particular on 1899. But no, it's a good question, but I don't anticipate that happening. Okay, if you want to transition to the budget list, the second document I'd sent you, this is going to be much longer. It was my attempt to go through all 3 budgets and list out the things that are impactful for Spokane, and try to kind of delineate out to the items that were on our agenda. So the first budget is just going to be, this is capital. So the first list here. A couple items there for the fire assistance and recovery. You'll see there 2 different capital budget grants, or well, not grants, I guess, but 2 capital budget allocations. And then transitioning down to the next one, a little bit of explaining here. That first item, the $773,000, that is directly to the county, whereas the other 3 are grant pots of money that the county could access, I believe. Sometimes the budget's a little vague on exactly who is eligible, but by my reading, folks are. That last one isn't necessarily something that I don't believe that the county buildings themselves could take advantage of that clean energy community grants for the underserved populations. But I believe that you could be an access point to those folks in your community. So happy to work with your staff once the budget's actually signed. And keep in mind, none of this is official yet until the governor signs the budget. It's very possible that these are each in different, what you'd call a proviso, different line items. They could be vetoed. That's pretty rare. And I'll let you know if that does happen once I get the governor's veto message on the budget. But these are just pots of money that folks in your community, first, those two that you all could access as a county, and then the third there being folks in the community. Next item down there is a direct assistance for us, the Broadway Senior Housing Project. I assume most of these are projects you're going to be more familiar with than I am. But a longer list there too of county projects. Some of these are in different pots in the budget, but you're familiar with, I've called them the community projects. Most of these are community projects. A few there that we have talked about that weren't necessarily on our list, but the transload for sewer, I assume that's a sewer hookup of some sort, and then the scale house kitchen, we talked about those. I think most of these I brought up when I highlighted the two different budgets a couple weeks ago. And so this is essentially the merged list. If the project is not, a project in question is not on that list, I don't believe it was in the budget. I'm happy to take another look. I've read through it 3 or 4 times and done word searches and things like that for different projects. So if you have a particular question you want to ask, please do. But I don't believe anything that's not on the list was not in the budget. Capital, excuse me. Okay, any questions on the capital side?
I have some questions.
Commissioner Jordan was first.
Just to clarify, Mike, did you say that those capital items in theory could be line item vetoed?
Yes, Commissioner, they could. The governor has line item in budget vetoes, not in others. So they could, these different provisos could be zeroed out. But like I said, it's pretty rare for that to happen. But then I'll let you know. The budgets are normally the last thing that the governor signs. And so that'll be at least a couple, 3 weeks from now.
Okay, Commissioner Waldorf is next, and then Commissioner French.
Yes, thanks, Mike. Is tier 1 buildings, does that refer to like public education, like universities?
No, I think
Tier 1.
I thought tier 1 was a classification of one of the clean building classifications.
Okay.
I thought, but if I'm wrong, please clarify that.
I think it's the over 120,000
By
maybe.
size.
They have them by size. It's like
Got it.
150,000, 90, 60, or
So this would be
something
like the
that.
largest size?
Those would be the largest.
They're the first ones required to become in compliance with it.
Got it, thank you.
Commissioner French?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So the transload sewer is a project that the airport and the city and county supported as well, was to extend sewer down to the transload so that we could accommodate starting to add manufacturing and warehousing onto the transload facility and stuff. So that's a partnership, but ultimately it'll be to the city of Spokane as the one that's organizing that project. Thank you.
Perfect.
And Scott.
Well, I was just going to raise, are there things on here, are the commissioners interested in a media release to highlight some of the things you were advocating for, or that were really connected to programs that the county has supported already? So I'm thinking, the Gray and Oregon Road fire recovery, the clean buildings specific to the county, Broadway Senior Housing. We had some commissioners put some money in there for from ARP, transload sewer, as Commissioner French mentioned. While you didn't specifically advocate for the Public Facilities District, the county's a big financial backer with them, so I just highlighted a few that you might want to. So maybe after we get through this, if there's some things that you wanted to highlight, if you're interested in a media release that's calling out the dollars that are coming into the community from the legislature.
Madam Chair. I think that's a great idea, and it could be a way to kind of celebrate, successes and put a little, there could be some media coverage, which might reach the governor's office, as a way to kind of indirectly pressure and make clear we support those things remaining in the final budget and documents.
So,
Just
oh,
a second,
sorry,
Mike.
Commissioner.
Commissioner Waldron.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. Mike, do you know if, and maybe you know this, Josh, Commissioner Kearns, did they set aside any funding for that, Northeast PDA project, for childcare? I know it would be within like a Commerce childcare grant, so I wasn't sure if it would show up here.
So good question. Commissioner Scott had asked me about that, and I looked
No?
and like I said, did several word searches and didn't see it. That doesn't mean it's not there. I could just be searching under the wrong terms, but in the capital budget, you can sort by legislative district. So I sorted all the county because the PDA would be in the 3rd or the 6th, right?
Yeah, 6.
Yeah. So I certainly went through those. I mean, that's the way I get to this list, and I didn't see it. And so if maybe it's not a capital request, but I'm happy to be proven wrong, but I don't believe it was there.
We discussed it on Friday at the NAPDA, and Jesse, the executive director, didn't think we got it either,
Okay.
so.
At most, what he was told is there may be some planning money in there for some early A&E sort of work, a couple $100,000, but his understanding it wasn't in there either. But
Okay.
I just asked Mike to look through and he hadn't found anything.
Okay. But yes, I support the idea of a news release to highlight the projects that the county advocated for and any particular partner projects. If you think that's a good idea, Mike?
Yeah, I do, commissioners. And if you want to do that, if you want to connect me with your staff, I can actually go through the budget with them, because some of these, like up on the tier 1 building, think that, like I gave you a snippet. That's it's a proviso that has a lot more detail in it than I provided there. So that might help in terms of writing a release and doing it properly. So if you want to connect me, I'm happy to walk through some of that and give a little more background on these items.
Yeah, and Pat Bell's here in the room.
Sure. All right. Yeah, Pat, just get a hold of me and I'll help you figure it out. But you probably know where to look anyway, but I'm happy to do that.
Great.
Okay. We want to scroll down to the transportation projects. 2 of note, and there's, you might have heard some about this. So that's the North-South corridor funding. There is a little bit of a concern, and if you kind of read the narrative there about the procurement dates of it, there was kind of a dust up between the House and the Senate when the budgets came out, and it involved projects on the west side and kind of some political posturing. But essentially, I think in the simplest form, and I'm going to get out on my skis here because I don't know how all this stuff works, but this is some sort of a review within the Department of Transportation to look at the costs of projects. And then if you scroll down further, so the dates that are important in terms of when the report has to come back to the legislature. And then at the end, if you go, to the next page, if the project bids come back over a certain level, they got to go back that 5% or more than 10 million. WSDOT has to pause and go back to the legislature. So I'm not completely familiar with the outcome of that is. I guess my worry of that as I read it and then talking to other people is that has the potential to cause some delays. So please fill me in if I'm missing something there, but I wanted to note that when it came to the North-South corridor.
Now, I guess I can state, I mean, Mike, because you talked to me and Max on that.
Yeah.
That there's a lot of bids that have gone design build that have gone way over budget over on the west side that has caused concern and pause. And so I think on the north-south corridor, the talk is now to make it a hard bid, not do a design build. And so it would break it up into different pieces and just do a hard bid because the hard bids seem to be coming closer to budget than what the design builds were. So So I don't know, is there anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, Commissioner, I don't know how valid the concern is that it could cause some sort of a delay. Again, I don't understand all the inner workings of those contracts enough to know. But that was a possibility as I read that, and in talking to a few folks, that could be a concern.
Yeah, I think if it goes hard bid, it's gonna be less of a concern because, but it's just gonna potentially delay it because then you've gotta do all the design side ahead of it before you put it out to bid. So that's part of the concern as well. So I can see Commissioner French has raised his hand.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So that paragraph there, starting out with the 200,000 in the motor vehicle account, is that an additional 200,000 that is being allocated to 904, or is that clarification on the 200,000 we got last year with regard to the Four Lakes I-90 interchange?
Commissioner, you might not remember this, but this happened late last year. That was vetoed last year, the 200,000. So this is a
Oh,
replacement of
that's
that.
right. That's right. You're right.
Yep.
It did get vetoed. So this is the legislature's attempt to replace that.
Correct. And then at the bottom there, you'll see my 2 stars with the letter of support. I put that there because my colleague that lobbies for Cheney, City of Cheney, reached out and mentioned that they may be in contact with you asking for a joint letter or some sort of joint communication. I don't know if that's happened or not yet, but I told her I'd raise it when I talked to you today.
It has not happened yet. I know the mayor has been suffering a bad, well, I don't put on the record. But I'll reach out to him, and yeah, I'd love to be able to provide a letter of support for this. You bet.
Sure. So yeah, if they're going to be in contact, if I need to help close the loop on that at all, let me know. But this is a replacement of what was in the budget last year that was vetoed.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. For sure. And then, sorry.
Just a
Yeah,
second.
please.
Commissioner Baldwin.
Thank you. Just on the topic of construction, although it's not capital, I ran into Cheryl Stewart and she said though that that there was money that initially they didn't think they had any funds or projects for maintenance and yes, but it sounds like that money was put into the budget. So I wasn't quite sure what she was trying to describe to me, but it sounded like now there will be some projects if this budget is approved for, preservation throughout the state, so.
Yeah, it initially was taken out of the budget, but I don't know, I haven't seen what
So
was put back in.
good question, Commissioner. I didn't look for that note. So I will go through the transportation budget and try to figure that out. If I can't find it, I'll ask someone that knows how to read it. So transportation budget's more complicated to read than other.
Yeah. I will know later today, through other channels, so I can find out for you too, Mike, and let you know.
That'd be great. But yeah, I'll take a look and let you know what I find.
Okay, thank you.
And then the last bit, transitioning, if you're done with transportation, transitioning to the operating budget. First item there, I do not see unfunded mandates. There was not legislation of note passed this year that requires you all to do a bunch of spending that was not funded. And then within the shared revenue, also didn't see reductions there. Do need to see the final product. I will lean on my folks from the Association of Counties quite a bit and the Association of Cities for that matter. They put out some really good detailed budget matrices that line item all the levels of specific spending out. So I could be proven wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure we're in pretty good shape. Not a surprise too, given that the state and the budget are still in pretty good shape. I think there's probably some signals of that maybe changing for next biennium, but for this biennium, the budget held firm in terms of support for you all in shared revenue.
Commissioner French?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So the one line item there, waste energy feasibility study, it's a little misleading in that it's not a feasibility study. What it is, it's a study to see if they can capture carbon from the waste energy emissions and try and somehow avoid the carbon tax. If the carbon tax if this study is not successful and the state starts levying the carbon tax on the waste energy plant, I think it's last number I heard was somewhere in the neighborhood of $5 to $6 million of additional cost that would basically make incinerating our garbage uneconomical for our ratepayers and force us to go to landfills. So this is a pretty significant impact for our ratepayers. And if that study is not successful in terms of how to capture the carbon, then we're going to have a conversation about changing our waste disposal and going to landfill as opposed to incineration. So that's the critical element of the line item. Thank you.
Yeah, Commissioner, the feasibility, that was my word. I probably put that there trying to summarize it. So I think that's in the proviso somewhere. But
yeah, no, I understand.
Sure. Couple here to highlight for you, commissioners, and explain a little bit. The first three there, those are just grants. A lot of them, you'll see a note there when I say city, they do go to the city, but I understand that a lot of these are regional problems. So did want to highlight those for you. You'll see the fire recovery funds there. That's a reimbursement for costs, as I understood the proviso. And then the last three, I wanted to note for you because there's something maybe your staff there at the county could take advantage of. The web portal is exactly that. The Department of Commerce is supposed to create a web portal to help you all access grants. But there's a lot of folks that can access them, a lot of other public agencies. Similar to that next line there, because the one is showing you where, as I understand it, the first one that's $1 million, that's to build the portal. And then the second is actually staff time, I believe, to help assist in doing the grant writing, things like that. And then that's state. And then the third one, there's federal. I put CCA by those though, because those, along with a lot of other parts of the budget that received dollars from the Climate Commitment Act, those would all three go away if the initiative passed. So I wanted to note that for you there. And then, so there might be some work down the road, just flagging that again, maybe more on your side, Scott, working with your team to make sure that the county's taking advantage of all the opportunities that are out there for them once the budget's finalized. And then the last bit there.
Mike,
yes, please.
Scott has a question.
So Mike, am I understanding correctly that these are dollars going to commerce for their purposes? They're not coming.
So yes and no, Scott. So yes, they're dollars that go to commerce, but the county, as I read it, should be able to take advantage of those. Because like the web portal should be like as I understand, is a clearinghouse for where different grants a public agency might be able to take advantage of. So it's very possible that your staff already knows about all these different possibilities, but just wanted to flag it for you. That makes sense?
Sure.
Okay. If you have any more questions, you just reach out and I can clarify more, but that's the way I understand them to be. And then the last, there's 6 items there that directly relate to housing. The first is not 23 million just for Spokane or the area. That is a statewide pool of money that you could access. But the grant, the 400,000 is specific to Spokane. And in fact, the rest are specific to Spokane. And so like the one there where it says local governments housing grants, again, that's a city grant. But that's like a $30 million proviso. And there's a $4 million carve out for the city of Spokane. So not exactly sure how your partnerships with them are working on the housing side, but wanted to flag that there. And then the last one, the climate victim support, is county specific, along with the domestic violence shelter. Those two are county specific.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So are you back home or are you still down in Olympia?
Oh no, I came home Thursday once I knew that the deal was done. I watched Signey die from my house at home, so which was nice. But
there you go.
Yeah, settling back in, but still paying attention to things. Like I said, the last big thing that I'll really be looking at is that once the veto or when the governor signs the budget, there's always a veto message associated with it. So we'll flag anything there for you. But yeah, if you want to have Pat reach out to me about getting a press release together, if I can help him do that at all, happy to do that. And then I'm going to go quiet for a while and then start bugging you all again in, the early summer about, thinking about capital projects for 2025 and things like that. So.
Well, thank you for all your hard work. We appreciate everything you've done for
Sure.
us down there, and you deserve a little time off here because I know it's a crazy season when you're down there. So thank you, and Pat will reach out and we'll get that press release
Well,
figured out.
for sure, commissioners. You guys are enjoyable to work for, so it makes it easy.
Thank you.
Okay, have a good day. As always, reach out if you need anything.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Yep, bye.
Okay, so I didn't cut that off because we did need to finish that discussion, so we're a little behind time, but that's okay. Okay, Kyle and Deborah, welcome.
Morning, Commissioners. We'll see if we can't get a couple minutes back into your schedule here. We have a couple of items for you this morning. First one here, Deb Perkins is going to brief for you.
Intermountain Infrastructure Group has a franchise with the county that we gave them in 2022. And they've reached out to us because in our franchise, it says that if you have a change of the ownership of the company, they've got a bunch of funds that are controlling the company itself, and they've switched. One fund is now heavier than the other fund in that company, so the ownership is kind of like changed. If you have a change per our franchise, the Board of County Commissioners must agree to that. It's still the Intermountain Infrastructure Group that will be running the franchise, servicing the public, doing everything. It's just that their main ownership is changed, and they're asking for your approval of that, and we're suggesting that you approve it.
Any questions? Nope, seems pretty straightforward. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And we'll get Shannon to join us.
Yeah.
Haven't seen Shannon for a while. Good to see you. You too.
We have another presentation to pull up here. So we are requesting to bring in some consultant support for us to support our Public Works Finance group. We have a little presentation up here just kind of talking about what we need. So we are kind of in a little bit of a capacity bind right now. In the short term, we have found a consultant group that we feel really comfortable working with, that we think can come in and take a little bit of the load off the team that is kind of overwhelmed right now. So I'm going to kind of dive into kind of state of Public Works and how we would be utilizing this support.
We have been working really hard to get to a place in all of our funds where we can provide better managerial reporting, better decision-making capacity. Getting to the point where we can provide information to our managers to make better operational decisions. In doing that with the ERP, we've really been trying to construct it also for countywide for projects to be able to perform those decisions. Unfortunately, we've also lost 2 staff recently. And so we're just getting to a point that kind of can't do both, keep operations going, get the ERP designed and tested to make sure we get to the point that we need to do. So that's kind of why we need it. The consultant will come in and hopefully help provide better more ideas as far as managerial reporting other than what's coming out of my head, Kyle's head, the manager's head. He specializes in that. Also, he's done three ERP conversions recently, so hopefully he can kind of come in and help with my guidance, test some things, work with the staff, come in and do rate studies if necessary, because we do a lot of the rate management. We also have some of the operations with transfer stations happening, coming up, and so they need a lot of financial support, so they can come in and help with that also. So that's kind of the request. We just kind of need some more support in that capacity.
We've been burning pretty hard trying to do too much right now.
Yes.
We're still backfilling those positions. They're not going away. It's just by the time we bring somebody new in and mentor them and get them up to speed, it's going to be a ways out, and we don't have a good window to just pause. So we'd be utilizing the support to help that also, free up Shannon's capacity to bring on that new staff and train them up to speed. But yeah, we're just a little stretched right now.
And so is the consultant local?
It is, it's Northwest CFO. And they are available. Their rate is $90 an hour. I'm anticipating that will kind of ebb and flow, kind of depending on, operations and things like that. So, and they are available.
I
Any
know
questions?
it's been tough in the accounting industry for
Yes.
everyone, so I understand that.
We want to be mindful of Shannon's well-being.
Yes.
Thank
She's
you.
burning both ends, yeah. Really helping the public works team just have that additional support while they continue to recruit for some of these new replacement positions.
Having worked with Shannon, she goes above and beyond, so
Yes, she does.
she wouldn't be asking for help if she didn't really get it, so I know that. Commissioner Waldron.
Thank you. This sounds like a good solution in the interim, and I'm sorry, I can look at the details, but how long are you looking to contract with the company?
At max a year, and the only reason as we're going through that is, again, we have the system implementation, we have the payroll implementation coming right after that. We have budget going on, we have year end, and so again, I don't anticipate like full-time for a full year. I think it'll ebb and flow kind of depending on those busy times, and depending on how the ERP goes, and also how it comes about as we do hire more people and get them on board, as well as developing the accountants that we do have.
Thank you.
Not seeing any other questions.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Okay, that's gonna take us to George.
Yeah, thanks commissioners for having us. Listening to Mr. Burgess' presentation earlier, I think that maybe there's a tie between some of the things that he had listed out there and what we're coming to you all with today. So what we're briefing on is an opportunity to apply for funds through the Washington State Department of Commerce. It's their HERE program, or home electrification and appliance rebates program. So Paul brought this to my attention after meeting with some representatives from one of our local nonprofits that had some interest in this grant opportunity. And I said, well, it's got to align with what we're already doing. We're not going to go out and seek additional funds just because. And we feel like this opportunity really aligns well with a partnership, an ongoing partnership that we've had with SNAP for a number of years, doing the Essential Home Repair Program. So Pavel will give just kind of an overview of the proposal as it stands now, and then we'd ask for your support to pursue applying for this grant.
Good morning, Commissioners, Madam Chair. So basically, we've got a little presentation up here for eligibility, how this program really works. Essentially, there's $37 million up for grabs for local jurisdictions. The actual grant, it'd be a grant to us, but the actual eligibility is pretty wide. As you can see up on the screen, it's people with 150 AMI, percent AMI or less are eligible, which in Spokane, they'll basically be six figures. It's also available for small businesses, 50 people or less. But if you go to the next slide, I've a couple of the eligible rebates. So these are the eligible Energy Star certified appliances that we can get rebates on. And this would be a great opportunity for us to bring in extra capital into Spokane County. We can help single families or single people and families and some small businesses and basically just get Energy Star stuff for them. It's not the coolest thing, at least for like all kinds of appliances, but if we could get, these specific appliances for outdated appliances for things like Snap's Rockwell for their Pine Villa, a lot of single families around Spokane, it would be, really easy for them. They would just need to basically get us a receipt of what they purchased and we reimburse them. Talking with a couple of our partners, Snap would be perfect for the essential home repair for the actual appliances, for single families and for a lot of their projects. And then Snap Financial Access would be perfect for the small businesses. So on the next slide, I think we've got the actual funding. So there's $8 million set aside specifically for small businesses. So it'd be nice if in our proposal we could basically say that we're going to set aside a certain amount for small businesses, which Financial Access would easily be able to do. The admin cut for this is 15%, which is quite large as well. So any programmatic expenses, either on our side or for our partners, it'd be enough money to basically cover administration. If you go to the next slide. So this is our proposal. With these estimates, with a $2.2 million ask, we would easily be able to get 300 rebates to single families and multifamilies, and at least 40 for small businesses. The only reason that the estimate's a little higher for small businesses is it'd probably be commercial grade cooking equipment and whatnot. So these are just estimates. We could actually make these funds go a lot further. It'd probably be around $5,000 if we're doing water pumps and cooking appliances for one household. We could probably hit like $2,000 per household if we're just doing one heat pump and whatnot. So the proposal is basically $2.2 million for just Spokane County if we were not serving in City of Spokane. But after reaching out to City of Spokane, it sounds like they're not going to be moving forward to ask for these funds from Commerce. We have the potential of asking for $3 million, and then that would be $450,000 for administration for us and for partners.
I visited with George and Pavel last week, and one of the nice things I think they shared is oftentimes when the county puts monies out and other jurisdictions put money out, you've got the end recipient who might be the same, and then they have to follow different rules and processes and stuff. So this is a nice, elegant solution for SNAP to be able to have one program to manage for the entire county. So I think it was a great find by them, and I think having one program to manage is better for our partners out there.
I would agree with that. Makes it easier on everybody as they're trying to figure out who to talk to and where to go. And I mean, if Commerce has these funds available, it's like we need to be able to get them to our citizens that can use it. So thank you for seeking this out and seeing it and bringing it forward. Commissioner French.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So when we do these upgrades in single-family residential properties through SNAP, and I agree that SNAP is probably the right agency to do that, would it be possible to request from the recipient of the grant, the residential property, a utility bill for the last 12 months and a utility bill for the next 12 months? The premise that the state used was that these upgrades would actually be cheaper from an operational standpoint. And I'd just like to be able to be in a position to where we can actually test that assumption and find out, are folks going to be able to experience a lower utility bill or is their utility bill going to increase? So is that a possibility with regard to this grant?
That's absolutely something that we can talk with with SNAP or whoever ends up administering it to see what we can do for, yeah, that's something we're happy to look at.
Yeah, it's a non-cost issue. You're gonna get an annual summary for the past 12 months, and then 12 months out, we'll get a summary for this 12 months. So there's not a lot of work. It's just getting us the summary of the bill.
And I believe the only appliances that are eligible for the rebates, I think they're 10 to 15% more energy efficient. So they, in theory, they should be cheaper. And also the target would be people that are due for an update as well. So it'd be water pumps that are already breaking. So it'd be kind of a, yeah, it would be 2 wins basically.
Commissioner Jordan.
Does this have a 2-year time frame on it, or is there like an end date for the dollars, as there often is?
There is, so the end of the biennium,
Okay.
June 30th of 25.
Okay. And we would put out an RFP, I assume? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to make sure that that's clear. We've
Yeah.
mentioned SNAP's
Yes.
name several times here. This would, we would apply for it. If we got awarded the funds, then we would go out, request for proposal. It would be very limited scope, request for proposal. Yeah, and then we come back to you all with that contract.
Well, thanks for identifying this.
Commissioner Walter.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that was, I appreciate that you were listening to the different nonprofit partners, and it sounds like a great program. I like the idea of it being countywide to make it easier on all the residents. Just make one call, hopefully, to one organization under contract with the county. And so do you know if these are part of like a federal pass-through through commerce? Is this part of one of the federal appropriation bills, or I was wondering if it was part of the not the Infrastructure Act, but the
The
Inflation
federal
Reduction.
IRA program.
Right.
And they actually have a little asterisk on the website itself that says this is not part of that federal IRA program. So, so it's gotta be coming out of, state general funds, I would assume, as part of their, different initiatives.
Or maybe CCA funding, I don't know.
Could be, but yeah, I don't know.
That was already allocated this last year.
Yeah, that's what I suspect, is it was part of the original biennium budget, that's just now getting out.
Okay, great.
Any other questions? Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
So next, do you want to let Fawn know to come on in? Good morning, welcome Fawn.
Good morning.
Thank you for coming today to speak to us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, Commissioners. I want to first say thank you very much for investing in the Homeward Bound project and taking that on as a pilot, and choosing VOA to be your partner alongside of that. I, just as a overarching, Homeward Bound was brought to us to say if there were individuals that were experiencing homelessness in this community that had a place to go somewhere else and a safe landing pad, would you be able to administer funds to help them financially get to another location? And so that was really the goal of this program, and we administered it from July of 22 through December of 22. We can change to the next slide. And this program, the data I have for you is really, you extended it and did another 20,000, but the data I have for you is just over the first pilot, the first 20,000. And the reason for that is I had a change of staff. My program manager moved to Commerce, and then we migrated from Google Sheets to Outlook, and it's lost in space somewhere in technology, the second half of the data. So I apologize, but I will eventually be able to dig that out for you. But this is the financial use report for the funding for the first half. And as you can see, support services was really related to that funding that helped, 15,000 that helped those individuals financially move to another area. We had a small portion of salary and benefits and administrative costs to make sure we could cut the checks for a total of 20,000, and we averaged just over $300 per person to help them transition to another location. And just on the next slide. We had lots of partners. This was in high demand. 41 people were relocated with those funds, but it was really in partnership with other agencies across the organization. So these are a list of some different organizations that would send referrals. And still to this day, we probably get a call once a day requesting homeward bound funds. So it's still in high demand, and the question is, when are we getting this money back? We have people right now that need to move. Some of the challenges we had, we have a lot of individuals that maybe have an RV or a vehicle and need a gas voucher and a gas card. So we ran into some challenges not being able to purchase gas cards with the funding, but it is really their only way to exit is if we can get them gas cards. So that is something that we would want to really think about if we were ever to initiate that in this community again. But the referral agencies were successful. We track our job and our team's process in this was to make sure that that individual was tied to a case manager. That case manager working with them has verified and has documentation that they have a support system to move to a safe and stable location. That can be a family member, a case manager, some other support services. Next slide. So some demographics of our participants, 83% really did move back to family. That was the major location that they moved back to, or to friends or a rental of their own. So 17% of those individuals. So very successful in the transition. 10% of our folks were veterans. We found that our veteran population is a little more migratory since SSVF started 15 years ago. So 10% wanted to get home to a home location. And 39% of our folks were BIPOC individuals. So Black, Indigenous, or people of color. So we supported that, and we do track those numbers. And very representative of our homeless population, 47% had some disabling condition. Next slide. And any questions?
So I guess, I'll just say, so we did the first 20 and then we did a second 20. And so that's out as well.
Yes, we have not had homeward bound funds for several months.
Okay.
Yeah, several months.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner French?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Well, obviously this program is, I thought, from my standpoint, met all of our objectives. We're helping people get reconnected with family and friends and supportive structures and stuff. So I'd certainly be in favor of allocating more funds to the program to continue it.
I think that's one of my questions is where the funds are coming from.
They were general fund. I think there could be some other considerations given to other buckets, but the pilot project, both 20s were general fund.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Waller?
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner French that, for about $300 per person, the cost of trying to provide homeless services is way more than $300 per person. And so I think it's a great program, and it's getting, as Commissioner French said, it's really, people need to be reconnected with folks that can support them. And so, I guess my question was following up on the funding part. Could we use some of our our other like homeless,
I see. George, you may wanna come.
George,
Join
could
the
we use some of our other homeless funds?
Well.
I know
Come
we
on
just,
down.
I know we just put out an RFP, but, are there some funds that we could use that wouldn't be general funds that would be applicable?
So yes, we just put out the request for proposal, and I can report to you that we had approximately $10 million in that request for proposal. I believe that we just conducted the most successful county homeless service request for proposal ever. We received 53 applications with requests totaling $21.5 million. So yes, we have funds available to support programs like this. However, our requests far exceed the total amount of resources that we have available. And a lot of the applicants that are in here, including Volunteers of America, are some of our, I guess what I would consider our foundational programming. So FON, for example, has 66 units of permanent supportive housing that are, I think I could say that in jeopardy.
Yes, we're in the process of eliminating actually right now.
So we've got some of these really important pieces that we want to make sure that we're able to support through our request for proposal and our limited funding resources. So yes to all, but no, we don't have enough money to do everything.
And Homeward Bound was not part of our proposal for this.
Okay, and then the city isn't, we were the ones doing this, the city didn't provide any funding.
Yes, it was a sole pilot funded by the county, correct?
I'm thrilled to see the results. I remember when I brought the concept forward, it was based because on other communities around the country doing it, and I thought, well, if it works there, why wouldn't it work here? And I thought it was great. There were several people that said it was terrible that we would do something like this until a couple key folks in the homeless service provider industry kind of came forward and said, no, this is really good. And then everybody thought it was a great idea. And then, and the results show it's a very good idea. It's very successful. So, I'm fully in support of putting more dollars into it. I mean, we use general fund dollars. I mean, I view that kind of as a one-time expense. I mean, I guess you could kind of argue it's an ongoing program, so it's ongoing, but it is, I mean, it is a one-time expense to help one individual and, hopefully get them out of homeless, not continuing to fund, one individual person or family repeatedly. So I would be fine using general fund if that's what it came down to. I mean, if we have other dollars that George can identify for us, I certainly support going that way as well.
A possible option to ensure that we don't have an ongoing general fund cost is to bridge for this period of time. And then it sounds like this is a unanimous priority for you all as the commissioners. So the next request for proposal that we put out, that's something that we could put in as an intervention that we're prioritizing. And then make sure that we're picking that up with our grant funds in the next request for proposal. So that way you all have an off-ramp on the general fund commitment to that if you elect to make that commitment now.
Yeah, I just want to add that if we want to support the veteran portion through our Veteran Services Program, that's also another option that we can look at.
That's was one of my questions I was gonna ask, because either through Veteran Services or through
SSVF.
Yeah, the federal veterans program, here in town for homeless, that should be able to be funded through them and not have to be funded this way. It's a little bit more coordination.
Typically, those veterans, if they couldn't get served through SSVF, it was because they didn't have an honorable discharge.
Okay.
So we would have gone that path originally, but they didn't qualify for SSVF. That doesn't necessarily mean that they couldn't qualify for a different pool. I don't think we thought about that money, so thank you, Kat.
Yeah. So, no, I'd be happy to continue to support this, but look at bridge funding and look at maybe how some of our other partners would want to participate as well. Since we did as a pilot, we have a contract with VOA, can we just continue that contract? I guess that's one of the questions versus having to put it out for an RFP.
That's a legal question.
Potato.
I mean, I think we can, since we've already
I
been
think it's an
contracting.
extension of the
Yeah.
dollars, because that's what we did, the original 20, and then we extended by another 20, I believe, we can extend by another 20 as well. We'll double check.
I think as long as we keep calling it a pilot, probably.
Right, sure.
Yeah.
I'd wanna talk to the person on my legal team, was it Wes that had worked previously on this?
I couldn't tell you.
We'll find out, and then we'll just check
Check the contract, make
Yeah,
sure
make sure that we're
allows for another
fine.
extension.
Yes.
Cause I think it just would be, I mean, since the committee knows who to go to and they have the system figured out, it just seems to make sense to continue it that way. Rather than putting it out for an RFP and then someone else has gotta figure out how they go about doing all of this, so.
Sure. We'll look into an extension.
So is the board interested like another 20? Is that what you're, as far as we weigh something up once we get the legal how-to?
What would the timing be on the next RFP process and decisions?
Yeah, so our next request for proposal will come during the latter half of this year, so.
In like
we're-
6 months.
Yeah, we're really stacking everything up because we're trying to reset a cadence. So, yeah, the end of this year with those funds then being available July 1 of 25.
Commissioner French.
20,000.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So I'd like to start the oxygen at 30,000 and see where we go from there.
Fawn, how long did each of the 20s generally last until they got used up?
Yeah, we're seeing, with the demand, I would guess about 3 months,
Oh, wow.
3 to 4 months.
Fawn, you mentioned earlier on that you're getting about a call a day, and that's with the funds not there, so in
And already
theory.
messaging to the community that the funds aren't there.
Yeah,
correct?
so that number could be, artificially low, I mean, as far as how the need goes. If money wasn't an option, I mean, do you think, I mean, you talk one call a day, so in theory, are there really about 365 people that could be helped out of homeless if those funds were there or more? I mean, are there that many people that we could connect to a safe, secure place if the funds were there?
Well, you just asked a homeless provider to give you an unlimited amount of money, so you should never do that, just warning. But that's absolutely an impossible number to predict. I wish that I could tell you that, we would expect 10 people a day to be able to connect. It's nearly
Well, I'm just saying,
impossible.
if you're getting one call a day or those, is it the same people calling back? Or are these new
no.
people each day saying, I have a brand new person that could utilize this?
Those are
each-
new people
It
and
is,
new
okay,
individuals.
so, wow.
And we're receiving, from the list that I shared with you, requests from a lot of the treatment centers are looking for ways to get people home as well. So we're seeing it from a broader scope of
Okay.
just our homeless service providers as well.
Okay.
So I guess I'm gonna throw out there to Commissioner French's point, like 30,000, let's see how far that goes. And then come back and let's talk and see what our, what the statistics are at that point and who's utilizing it. And sure, cause we may need to enlist partners, whether it's the business community, the other cities to help out. I think this is something that, we're not gonna be able to just fund ourselves if it's, correct, say 700 people at $300 a person, I mean, that's 120,000, so. So I think we've gotta look at what those other opportunities are and for funding sources. So I would be happy with adding another 30,000 at this point in time and kind of gauge where it's at.
agree. I think it sounds prudent, and hopefully we could reach out to the city, find out where they are in their funding processes, because I think it would be really valuable. I agree. I think it should be a partnership with philanthropy, business, and government to support this.
That might be something that you all as the commissioners put out as a charge to the community to say, we're gonna put X number of general funds to this, and we call, I mean, the city does that all the time, calls on you all to support, so maybe that's something you do. We've been really, in our department, trying to work closely with Empire Health as well as Innovia, so that's something that we could, as well as you all, carry a lot more weight than I do, but reach out and say, we're putting this much in, how would you like to leverage?
Yeah, I was just thinking, I think the dollars were with Innovia, but there was this group that was putting money away with Avista and others for these types of efforts. That was a couple years ago. I don't know what ever happened with those dollars that they materialized. I don't know if that was.
I think it turned into Hello for
Oh,
Good.
is that what it was? So maybe it's a good idea to do a call for a match.
So. Very good. But, I mean, it starts with, you know, seeing the success of the program, you know, and then knowing the need and, so, thank you. Okay, so I know the other thing you wanted to do a follow-up on Crosswalk 2?
Yes, thank you for your deep investment in Crosswalk 2.0. We are excited to say that we are in final closing with all of our grant funding, and we anticipate doing our bank closing at the end of April, beginning of May, and excavators in the ground for a 1-year construction build. Just for clarification on the operations side, I wanted to give you an update. Crosswalk, as the existing emergency shelter, has been operational for well over 30 years, and that funding still remains and will just transfer to the new building. So we, as much as we like to say we're stable with funding, nonprofits are never. We annually apply for the same funds, but we believe in consistency that we've been funded this many years. We anticipate those funds to remain, and if not, we will course correct to remain open. The second floor, we are all taking a risk on. We have had tons of interest, and we have lots of different entities that are very interested. DCYF, Commerce, Foster Youth, all of those are looking at how to figure out how to buy some of those beds to support those youth that are embedded in hospital systems. DCYF is especially interested in the fact that they're putting foster kids in hotel rooms now, so this would be a direct alternative and saving them that. What we're waiting on right now is just the RFP process. Because of the timing of the build, we have to align the grant applications to the buildings. So I just want you to know we're in full process of that right now. We have multiple funding sources that we're working through and lots of conversations happening. So we are confident that we will be able to be operational, and I know you guys had some challenges with some of your grant funding that had to be spent. The ARP money needed, the 1.5 needed to be spent. I have talked to my team. They are absolutely okay spending that first. That will not impact our construction, so we will ensure that we spend that 1.5 as first out the door, and then layer the rest of our capital money on top of that. So we will not impede your requirements to get that money out the door.
Great, and I think as long as it's just contracted by the end of this year,
We're contracted. They're contracted with their builders.
yes, that's what I would think.
George and Heather and I and Fawn met last week. I think
Everything's in good shape.
we have a
Very
plan.
good. Yeah, no, excited and fun. I have to say, you are the best at like blending funds together to make great things happen. So, so excited for you.
Very excited too, and I know George just commented on, we've got some losses related to young adult shelters contract is ending and trying to keep that operational, as well as our permit supported housing. That does not impact our Crosswalk 2.0, so those are just separate buckets. So I did just want you guys to all rest assured that we are not anticipating that to be impacted.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Fawn? Okay, thank you for joining us this morning. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for all your support and continuing this program, and we'll make sure people get connected to other places where they can thrive.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Thank you. Okay, next up, we have Under Sheriff Mike Kittlestad.
Hi there.
How are you doing this
Good,
morning?
good. So we're here to ask for approval on the resolution regarding purchase of the hangar out of Phillips Field for the sheriff's office use. We have several units that currently occupy there. We rent space there from Edmo Distributing, and for prior approval, we've gone through the process. Mr. Null can talk as far as that process if he wants, to Mr. Simmons, and Randy will talk about the money part of it. Right now, we're paying $71,000 a year in rent to Edmo for that space. Some of that comes from Spokane Valley cost sharing, some from the city of Spokane for joint use agreement with the bomb squad. And then our total outlay for the county would be about $29,000. So we already budget for utilities, and maintenance is separate from the rent that we're charged for that. And so the purchase price on this is $750,000. The process would be such that we sign today. That purchase agreement then is Mr. Null would bring it to the airport board, and the airport board would have to approve the ground lease. This is a two-step process. So we anticipate that based on all the work that Mr. Null's done and the rest of us, that we are fairly certain that the airport board would look kindly upon this purchase agreement. So just to kind of summarize some of the benefits of this for our department, for our community. Sense of stabilization, we've moved over, some of the units have moved more than 4 times in the last 10 to 15 years. It's not easy to necessarily find a place to house all those units. Co-locating also lets them work together much better. It's centrally located. Before we had the SWAT team on the West Plains, which was added a significant amount of time when they were trying to respond to an emergency call elsewhere in the county. The location has a training area. It could be served as an emergency operations center as a backup. It's a good staging area. It's kind of out of sight, out of the area, the populated area. So it's good for that. It does actually have backup generator power, so we can be there depending on outages and whatnot. We've already done some investment in the infrastructure of the building. We've already put in prox cards, alarm system. We have a JAG funding request for camera improvements of the facility to improve security as well. We also looked at, having law enforcement on site almost daily, obviously enhances the security footprint of Phelps Field, just by having sheriff's office and Spokane Valley vehicles there, as well as our other partners in the issue that come over as well. The price is very good, we believe, based on our market analysis. The other big thing for us is there aren't very many times where hangars of this size become available. With the purchase of anticipated purchase of a new helicopter, as well as a Huey, which is quite tall. There aren't a lot of hangars out at any of the, especially at Phelps, that can house that size of an aircraft. So those are just some of the big benefits we saw on this, as well as the price is very good. It would certainly, as a county facility, solidify our footprint there for as long as we can be there. So.
Questions? Commissioner French, do you want to speak to the, I think this is, you've already brought this up with Larry Crowder.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So this proposal has been discussed with the airport committee structure and with the leadership, and we are very comfortable moving forward with it. I think there are elements that the sheriff's office has incorporated that will eliminate or address any other concerns that Mr. Crowder had. So we're comfortable moving forward with it. Thank you.
Thank you. And you know, you can speak to the fact that hangar space is at a premium, and so it's not something that comes up very often, and so this would be I kind of feel like if we don't take advantage of this opportunity, it may not be there in the future.
You're exactly right, Madam Chair. The hangar space, we are out of hangar space out at the Felt Field. In fact, we're looking at trying to expand land area around or on the property so that we can build more hangars, because there's more demand than there are hangars available and stuff. And this particular hangar is easy to access and is right sized and I think works well for both the county and for the airport. So I think it's very fortuitous that we're being able to take advantage of this right now.
Yeah, no, I think so too, and also for the city of Spokane as the partner in using the facility as well, so. Any other questions?
Can you remind me what the source of the funds is and kind of the cost benefit for the purchase?
Yeah, so I think maybe Randy will talk about where the funds are gonna come from right now, but in a nutshell, some of the revenue we.
Randy's on if you want to.
Oh, yes, okay, good. You want, go ahead, Randy.
Oh, you can go ahead.
Thanks.
No,
I was
you.
just gonna say, the funding, when we were talking about this in December, or actually it was before that, so it would have been in November, late October, early November. We were gonna be moving funds within the budget, so we weren't creating new budget or anything like that. We were just reallocating money that was already in the 23 budget. And we would still use that money for this hangar purchase.
Any other questions?
Scott, do you want to cover the revenue, kind of the revenue side? So we've got.
That was gonna be my question.
Yeah, sure, so.
Ongoing operations
Yeah,
and
so,
costs and
yeah,
maintenance.
So anticipated revenue, right now, the city of Spokane, through the ILA for the bomb squad alone, pays about $14,000 a year in rent. So we would continue to see that, because they would still have a footprint there with the team. About $28,000 per year is from Spokane Valley currently. And then there's another tenant there, Inland Helicopter. Currently they pay $27,000 a year in rent. We anticipate wanting to continue that lease with them and have them stay on the facility. We have the space to allow them to stay. Several of their pilot instructors there also fly for volunteer pilots for us as well. So that minus the ground lease, we would have to pay a ground lease to the airport board, which is $20,000 a year. So based on what we're paying and the revenue coming in, it looked like an estimated revenue of about $78,000 a year between all those funds minus the additional cost of having to pay the ground lease, which we don't now. It's kind of rolled into our rent. So Scott, we talked about kind of a break-even point.
Yeah, there's a lot of these things get accounted for in our, what we call our VCAPs. So cost sharing for air support unit, cost sharing for the location of the bomb squad and other things. Those would be pretty net neutral on there. We'll get relief now from the $71,000 in hangar rent. We'll get about $27,000 in revenue from the helicopter company who will lease from us. And the $71,000 isn't fully borne by the county because we allocate some of that through our air support unit. But the delta that we do pay, which I think is maybe in the $40,000 range, we will now have relief from that, add on the $27,000 income, less the $20,000 in ground lease. We already pay for all the utilities maintenance of it, so that'll be also a net neutral impact of it. So all in, we're probably gaining $70,000 a year. Acquisition of the hangar for $750, 8-year payback, consider some capital costs. We'll still build in an implied some sort of allocation for the hangar. It won't be a lease cost now, it'll be our capital holding cost for it, so we'll still build that into the air support unit allocation as well.
I guess that's what I would say is, like, you know, any excess would just go into reserve for the building or things that need to happen, you know, there, for the replacement of bomb squad equipment or any of that, that would be a good way to handle that. So. Any other questions? Nope, I'm excited. I think it's gonna be great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This
Thank
is
you.
this is on consent for this afternoon, if I'm not mistaken, yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks. Thanks, Beth.
Yep, thank you.
It's easy.
Mike. You have others
I've
trying
got
to get
an
him excited?
entourage coming.
You do have an entourage coming.
We need a few more chairs. All right, we got one more over there.
That's for me, thank you.
The knee knocker here.
Got it up, ready to roll? Might have moved
Ready
those tall
as
legs
I
up.
can be, I know, I'm trying to figure out the appropriate
I know, it's a
spot.
little bit iffy.
Why couldn't we have a levitating chair?
Good morning,
That's my
Board.
first
I'm here today to kind of brief you on the RFP process and also give you a chance to review the charter on a new medical contract for detention services. So we're not gonna dive into the details of the RFP today. We're not gonna dive into the contract. I figured we're just giving you a high-level overview of what we're doing and where the process is going, and I'll have Ken lead off and then also have the staff here to answer questions.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Ken Moore, County Project Management Office. Here to talk to you a little bit about our medical service provider for detention services. You would know them as NAVCare. Going to the first page, Ron, if you wouldn't mind. We contract with NAVCare for medical, dental, and pharmacy at both the Geiger and downtown jail facilities. We've been under contract for close to 7 years. The initial contract was signed in July of 2017, and there's been several amendments or extensions issued, and we're coming to the end of that on June 30th of 2024. And because of that, we're going to be going to RFP here in the next few days. And as part of that, we need to buy a little bit of time to allow the RFP to process. It's a bit of a lengthy process, and therefore, we're looking to bridge the contract or have another amendment, short term, that will carry us through to December 31st of 24. We've been in some initial discussions with NAVCare to do that, and they're open to doing that. And they've sent back a draft contract to us, an amendment, that takes us from where we're at today with a $654,000 per month contract, which equates to about $7.8 million a year, to a $686,000 per month contract through December. It amounts to a 5% increase, and if that were annualized, that would be about $8.24 million. 5% is a pretty standard increase over the years with NAVCare. We expected that. In fact, we expected it to be slightly higher. Note that there's an additional $100,000 per month set aside for what we call additional optional hours that addresses some capacity and some needs that we had from the last contract, so that's carried forward. And we intend to be reaching out to you here in the near future for a consent agenda resolution item to execute that contract. And again, just buying time for the RFP, which we'll speak about in just a moment. So I'll pause if there's any questions.
Questions at this point?
Okay.
Commissioner Wall, no, just a second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's right, no, so just, are you saying that when you say the future contract value, you're saying for this short-term extension? Okay.
Yeah, correct. The existing was the 654. The new 6-month extension would be 686 a month. Yeah.
Okay,
To bridge the gap.
and that includes the 100K per month,
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
It's an additional 100,000 a month for optional hours. Yeah.
optional, so that's under our discretion to choose if we need, how is that negotiated with the party?
Darren, maybe you want to touch on that?
Currently, we had this last amendment added optional hours that were proposed by NAVCare to add in more provider hours.
Right.
We're operating off a contract that's about 7 years old at this point, so the staffing matrix isn't necessarily meeting the needs that we from that 7-year-old contract of what they needed today. So NavCare came back to the county, proposed some optional hours to be able to keep up with those needs, but it allows us flexibility as our population fluctuates to increase or decrease those.
So because we made those adjustments like a year ago, right?
Yeah.
They requested some additional funds to hire more staff, and we also agreed to that, to have a good staffing level.
Yes, and on top of it, if they weren't staffing those positions because they're having the same problems we all are with applicants, that we're not getting billed for those if they are providing those hours.
Okay, thank you.
We're billing about 50, we're using about 50 of the 100 right now.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Ron, next slide, please. So assuming that the consent agenda resolution item goes through and we have this bridging contract in place, obviously we're looking to move forward with the RFP at the same time in parallel. We have all the materials gathered. We're looking to go out the door with that probably tomorrow. But I'll give you a little bit on the RFP and the best value approach. We've used best value in the past and had great success with it. It's a little different than a standard RFP in that it puts more weight and emphasis on the provider's service plan, their level of expertise, how they're going to mitigate risk, and the value that they can bring to us. So some additional elements there that we'll evaluate as we go through RFP. In terms of the slides, we have worked with the National Commission on Correctional Healthcare, NCCHC, since December when we contracted with them to assist with requirements. They're experts in this area. They helped us gather dozens and dozens of very detailed requirements that the vendors will be responsible for as they reply in their proposals. And we've worked since December until now to get the RFP wrapped up. It's just about ready to go out the door tomorrow. And that's our plan. And then the proposals will be coming back to us in late April, I believe the 24th. We've got a selection committee put together that will be reviewing those. You can see from the little diagram on the slide, there's just kind of two main parts to the RFP. There's a initial high-level selection process where we actually interview and demo the solution. So in the interview process, we don't just ask that they bring in their slick sales reps and pitch us with lots of nice glossy materials. We actually want their subject matter experts, the project manager we're going to be working with, as well as a couple other people that will be here working with us to transition and support the new model going forward. So the goal with that is that you want to hear that these four individuals have worked together in the past and done this before, and there's a cohesiveness to them. And we find oftentimes, and I think with past RFPs that we've done with the jail, that there's some glaring details from these people that you could tell that they haven't worked together. Maybe they're new to the company. I've never done an implementation before. I'm not quite sure how Ron, my partner, does things, but I'll learn from him. These are all red flags that come up during the RFP process. So we're expecting 3, 4, 5 proposals to come back. NavCare will likely be one of them, and we support that. And we'll give them all a fair evaluation. So by late April, when we receive the proposals, we expect to be coming back to you this summer in the July to August timeframe with an approval to award being granted by you all. And from there, we can move into contracting, which would take us potentially into September. We'll see how quickly that moves. With the goal being to potentially transition to a new provider by the end of the year, Q4. And certainly, December is not a great time to be trying to transition those services. So we would hope that we would be more in the October, November timeframe. So that's the presentation. There is a timeline, Ron, if you want to flip to the next slide. We've touched on all these dates, but puts it all in a pretty picture for you. And we're open to any questions you guys might have.
I just might add too, so you got a copy of the charter. Please review the charter. It details exactly what we feel are the important details moving forward to RFP. Pay particular attention to the team. The team itself was a very robust team that they put together to compile all the details for this RFP, and I think they did a wonderful job on that.
So a question I have is with the 1115 federal waiver that's coming up, because that starts January 1 of 2025 for mental health, behavioral health waiver. Is that in this proposal that they would be then working to bill, I think is it the MCOs that will be paying those costs instead of us? And so I wanna make sure that we have that in this contract, because if we don't, as we get to that, we're gonna set ourselves back where we're not gonna get, paid for those costs. We're gonna be incurring those costs and they're not gonna be billing the MCOs. And I know they do this with other counties across the state of Washington, so we wanna make sure that that is in this request for proposals, so that way we know that, because it's my understanding the AFCARE is the one who does the mental health, behavioral health diagnosis and all of that, so that should be a eligible cost for
To build back.
to build the MCOs, and it should be on them, I think, to build the MCOs. Now, our behavioral health team would have to then bill, I think, separately with the MCOs. So I just wanna make sure that we're setting ourselves up for success come January 1 of 2025.
We'll make sure that's added into.
Yeah, and in terms of the RFP, we have very general language about that, but as we get into contracting, we will get in much more detail on that, yeah.
Okay.
So there's some, again, we're high level in the RFP, we'll have discussions during the RFP evaluation when we deep dive with the number one proposal company, and then assuming they give us, the right responses, then we'll move into contracting and we'll actually outline all of that.
We may wanna have a mention of the 1115 waiver in the RFP, just so they know that they need to be aware of what it is and how it's gonna be handled.
Sure.
I mean, I think that's gonna be better to have it in the RFP than waiting for the contracting side, so that way they're at least constructed to do their homework on it as well.
Homework, yeah.
I like that idea, and in fact, put it on them to say how they're going to address it and
Prepare
do their
to-
billing and all that stuff, so it's upfront, they're expected to do that.
Sorry if that
I like
adds
that.
just a little bit to it, but it's like, we gotta make sure that's in there, otherwise we're gonna lose that opportunity. And, we're trying to seek that, I mean, as WASAC, we're trying to say, it's hard to do behavioral health if you don't have their physical health taken care of, and so looking for the future to get the waiver on physical health as well, which the state hasn't chosen to do, but could in the future. So we just wanna make sure we've got that opportunity in there.
Okay.
Anything else?
Any other questions? Okay, like I said, just high level to understand the process and where we're going with it, so.
Thank you.
Mike, do you wanna just remind the commissioners about the Geiger lease that's on this afternoon, or?
Yeah, we can talk about that too. Sure.
Yeah.
So on the consent agenda tonight, or this afternoon, will be the Geiger lease. It's already gone through legal. Legal has done their work and worked back and forth with Geiger on the details. We're comfortable with the direction it's going, so do you have any more you'd like to talk about that?
Other than that, what we talked about last time is it's a 3-year lease with 3 1-year extensions.
And I just wanna say thank you for all your hard work in putting the proposal together and all of that too, so.
And Ken.
I know it's a lot of work, so I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Amber, did you have another?
Thanks, Ken.
question?
Thanks, Steve.
No. I was just gonna say, there were some things that legal wanted to clean up, right?
Yes.
With the Geiger
And we
lease,
got all those things
and that has gone back and
addressed.
forth with.
Yes, we got all those addressed.
Okay,
So
awesome.
all good.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you
Awesome.
to everyone,
Thank you.
lawyers included.
That's right, thank the lawyers, don't forget the lawyers.
Doug, you're up next.
Yes, good
Welcome.
morning.
Lawyers matter too.
The best for last.
No, I think I have a real easy one. Thank you, board, for your time this morning. We are, perfect, graphics up there. We have been working away, trying very hard to meet our deadline here that is fast approaching come the end of the month to wrap up kind of the first phase, if you will, of improvements prior to the season, and we need some electricity and some upgrades. So specifically, we have 3 electrical service agreements that will help provide power to the expanded new home clubhouse, the future strength and conditioning building the brand new lights that are out there, the field lights, which are really exciting, but they need a little bit of time to work through those. And so with the ability to execute these agreements, I think we'll keep them on track to run that power either late this week or early next week, or a combination thereof. So it's been reviewed and approved by legal, and the risk manager has also reviewed and approved the indemnification language. We have budget, of course, and happy to answer any other questions.
So the purpose of the agreements are just, it's a new connection point, is that what it is?
They're up either a new connection point for like the maintenance building. The lights, we're actually having to refeed it because a former point of connection was disturbed when we expanded the visiting clubhouse on the first base side, and it is an upgrade as well. So they had to upsize, so there's been a lot of tunneling and underground boring and trenches and all of that. So some of them are new feeds and some are upgraded feeds as well. And we'll the maintenance building, for example, is being sized to also accommodate the future video board and upgraded scoreboard. So there's going to be some really exciting things happening, and this infrastructure is necessary to help us complete those items on the list and provide a little bit of time for troubleshooting.
And this is gonna be on this afternoon's agenda
Yes,
as well.
yes, and we really appreciate your help with that.
Timeliness to make sure that we have lights for the
When
opening
Yeah.
day.
When is opening day? It's
Yes.
coming up soon.
Like April 5th or 6th?
Oh my
gosh,
goodness.
yeah, I don't know why April 3rd comes to mind, but that first
Oh my
weekend, I
goodness.
think there may be 3 days of games and
Great week.
but they're really doing a great job out there. The lighted construction has just been excellent to work with, and everyone is, rowing together in the same direction, as they say, so we've been really pleased.
And the accelerated time frame was not because of our team's lack of planning. We were waiting on the vendor to get their information to us. They've been on it all along, so appreciate your ability to consider this afternoon.
I would think the batters will have a hard time if we don't get the lights turned on my opening day, so.
Yes.
It'd be a shortened game.
Yeah, pitchers might like it. I'm trying to figure out who would benefit from that, but
Exactly.
probably good to
No.
get the lights on.
No, and I just wanna say thank you, Doug, for all your hard work, cause I know it's been a lot of extra work on your part to get this all done and done quickly and all of that, and I actually got to take a tour the other day, last week,
Good,
so
good.
to see what was going on, so it's exciting.
It's really coming together, it is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no.
it's really impressive.
And like I said, it's amazing to think that opening day is soon. It's not that far off, so, yeah.
A few weeks out. In fact, I should be getting a weekly report I'll distribute to all the boards so you can see some photos of the progress. And so I should have that sometime this week, and I'll forward that on to you as well. It's just fun. So whatever you see now, it's gonna look completely different. Like 2 weeks from now, they're just, all the finishing touches are coming together, so it's fun to see that.
Yeah.
They've really been working.
No, excited, and like I said, I know you have too, so
Thank you, Doug.
thank
We've
you,
been
appreciate it.
working hard, trying to keep up. Thank you very much, and if there's no questions,
I'm not
Appreciate
seeing
your
any
time.
other questions. No.
perfect,
Oh,
thank
wait,
you.
Mr. Jordan,
Looks like April 5th.
April 5th.
Very good.
Okay. For the record.
Yeah, gotta get it right. I gotta put it on my calendar.
Yeah. Very good. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Still so 6:35 start, you gotta have lights on.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, it's not an afternoon game.
No.
Wait,
Yeah, that's for the miscellaneous.
we can go to miscellaneous, are they ready?
They are.
Okay, yeah, come on in, let's just do it. Sorry. Oh,
Melanie's will be like,
let's see, okay. Now, so do we have,
not yet.
okay,
So
well, we have
they would-
Collins.
they would be-
Okay, okay, so yes, so we'll go ahead and do, sorry, I wasn't sure who we were saying was ready and not, so, Okay, so we're gonna skip down to 3B, which is a letter of support to the Washington State Association of Counties regarding the Council of Defense proposed revised standards for indigent defense and caseload limits. I don't know if that already went in because they did have their hearing.
Yep.
And I don't know if you would like to talk about the hearing and what happened, or I got a briefing this morning, so.
I got the briefing on it, I think Victoria
I,
part of it tomorrow.
yeah, I attended via Zoom on Friday. At least coming into the meeting, the Washington Defender Association, WDA, kind of the information we were getting was we were expecting the Board of Governors to delay the vote. So it was a little surprising that it actually passed 12-1 after 3 hours of discussion.
That's what Wasack was saying as well this morning on my executive team call.
And that letter was part of the materials that were sent out, and I believe everyone confirmed, because there were various submissions that came beyond just what the CPD presented, and so I think that was something that was part of the materials as well.
I think we all got the information from Wasack last week, correct, on what those new standards were gonna be, and kind of there's a phasing in of them, and yeah, I think everyone thought there was gonna be a delay of it, but there's not, so it goes now to the state Supreme Court for ratification, is that?
So at this point, it is considered a Washington State Bar Association guideline. And so there is an RCW that says the counties have to look at those guidelines when they're doing their public defense contracts. But it will only become a court rule if the Supreme Court adopts it as such. In our current court rule, they did not adopt all of the WSBA guidelines. There were certain sections they reserved on and did not fully adopt. So they could adopt parts, they could adopt none of it, they could change what they are adopting, and so I think we won't know for sure until the Supreme Court acts on it that way.
And do we know when we anticipate the Supreme Court to act on it?
I know that they have been asking the CPD to speed this up, and so originally they wanted this done like in November. Obviously CPD had to ask for some delays and grace there before they finished their work. So I don't know how quickly they're going to work. I can certainly let you know if I find that out through the WDA.
Yeah, I mean, I know, as Wasack, we have our lawsuit that has a hearing next week. Discussions were that if this happens, it's a phase-in cycle of it happening, so it's a somewhat gradual, but I didn't realize on the back end of the phasing in, all the additional staff and support, and what that will really cost, as well as just, as you know, do we have attorneys that can even fill the positions, moving forward as we start to phase it in, since we're down attorneys at this point in time, let alone if we're gonna have a social worker that has to be have a master's level clinician on staff for every 4 attorneys. I don't know how we fund that when we can't even get co-deployed teams filled. So there's a lot of concerns that we're just I'm hearing this morning, so I'm just kind of putting this all out there to everybody. And as we talked about in our legislative agenda, that there wasn't really any unfunded mandates, this really becomes an unfunded mandate. Since it sits in RCW, that will be interesting as well with all the rest of it.
And I don't think in the past the Supreme Court has adopted, the only ratio that's out there involved investigators, and I don't believe the Supreme Court did adopt that one. However, it was permissive language and it was should. The new standards are all now shalls. But one of the CPD members authored a letter as well to the Board of Governors that echoes concerns I at least have, because most of the time our social workers are mandatory reporters, which can actually violate the attorney-client privilege. So I think that I'd be very curious to see how the Supreme Court reacts to that, because there are some competing interests in those areas as well.
Okay. So do we have is there a letter is there a letter of support or?
There was, so Commissioner French had asked this to be on here and included the letter that Eric Johnson from Wasac had sent in to Washington State Bar Association for awareness. And then Wasac had also highlighted that they were encouraging counties to submit letters to the Washington State Bar Association, not necessarily on the policy side with regards to caseload standards, but the financial implications. So on behalf of the county, I had sent in a letter last week to Washington State Bar Association. I sent it all to commissioners, just really highlighting the potential financial impact. Very general, very high level. From the letter, you can see that our costs for 2023 were about $11.5 million for indigent defense. And a really quick scan, and Victoria and Colin would be able to provide a much more detailed analysis of this, but a quick high level could show that our costs could easily triple if these new caseload standards are adopted, from 11.5 to well over 33 million. And that's not even, you gotta go to the granular level of truly what the cases are that our public defender and our counsel for defense are dealing with, whether they're felonies, misdemeanors, and then what kind of weighting they get. Because if I understand correctly, they're recommending changing from a case to a case credits, which I didn't see any of the case credits that were less than a 1. They were all 1 or greater, up to 8. So do the math, it could easily be much more than triple our costs if you were to fully staff to the required case credit standards. I'm saying that fairly accurately.
I think that's very accurate. The felony low is the only thing that counts as one case, and then it goes up to life without parole or avoided at 9, a murder's at 7, high sex is at 5. I ran rough numbers just briefly for three of my attorneys, just to get a general idea. Their Class A assignments alone for 2023 would comprise an entire caseload by final implementation in 2027 if this is adopted, which would leave the need for at least 2 additional attorneys per attorney I currently have to cover the Class Bs and C caseload that those attorneys took in addition to what would be a max caseload under these new standards. So it will be significant if this is adopted. And I anticipate the Supreme Court will open it up for comment as a court rule. So a lot of feedback can be presented that way to them too.
And Scott, I think that's accurate from my perspective as well. Again, I've just run some rough numbers. We haven't had a chance to really go through them or double check them. I think I even sent it to Law and Justice. I don't know if you saw any of those, but it doesn't fully take into account what Victoria just mentioned regarding the weighting. So I'm gonna factor that in. I'll get you some new numbers, but yeah, you're right. You're looking at the PD's office alone going from 60 to anywhere near 125 attorneys at full implementation. Not as the phase-in part, but at the end of it, yeah, it would be substantial. In addition to that, what we haven't talked about would also be technology, support staff, investigators, and space, right? If the rules.
Our favorite topic.
Right. Because the attorneys have to have an office they can have confidentiality in, and so that's where it gets tricky quickly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I hadn't heard about the social worker element of it, so that's interesting. So rather than refer clients to, community partners that have social services, this would be the proposal is to have a social worker on staff at the county?
Yeah.
So it says in public defense agencies, a minimum of one full-time mitigation specialist or social worker shall be employed for every 3 full-time trial court level attorneys.
1 for every 3?
Yes.
Oh yeah, no,
It's not just.
Oh, wow.
And to be honest, we say social workers because mitigation specialists are even more expensive. And usually they're hired as experts, not as just, and then the ratio for investigators is 1 full-time investigator for every 3 full-time trial court level attorneys, and then 1 full-time legal assistant or paralegal for every 4 full-time attorneys.
And Colin you said fully implementation, 120 attorneys, so 40 social workers, where are we gonna find 40 social workers?
Well, we're gonna find another.
SWU.
Yeah, where are we gonna find the extra 60 attorneys?
A lot of these questions.
Oh man.
behind on the pay scale anyway, so it's like,
Well, and I think Victoria's right too. The other part of it is, we don't know what the Supreme Court's gonna do. They may adopt all of it, they may adopt none of it, or somewhere in between. And they could change the language they could make it permissive, right? Instead of shall, all right, guideline is, best practice is, all right, you need this many paralegals, this many mitigation specialists, this many social workers. That may not be feasible. They may realize that's not feasible, and they probably will, be my guess, change the language.
so are we currently meeting the standards? Where we're
Current caseload standards, yes.
The current ones that are adopted as court ruled, yes. Our attorneys, if they were listening in or they're hearing things based on what happened at those guidelines, is that they're really being told that the numbers they're operating on, that they're not following the rules of professional conduct by maintaining caseloads as high as they are. And so I think that's fueled by the new RAND National Workload Study, and now this becoming our Bar Association's guidelines. That will, I think, cause some friction for them.
And we may see that change, and they have to file certifications every quarter saying they're in compliance with the caseload standards. My guess is, I haven't seen this yet or haven't heard from my attorneys, that they'll start filing addendums on top of that. Hey, WSBA has said this is what we should be operating under, we're not. So I think you're gonna start seeing some of that potentially, but yeah, we're in compliance as of right now.
I just wanted to confirm that where we're at today, we're in compliance, but as this comes down, okay. Any other questions? I think this was just kind of briefing us, right, then Scott, on what had happened this week?
No, and I think Victoria and I have talked about it, we're gonna keep running the numbers, we'll get a little bit more accurate information for you. I need to implement the weighting as part of my calculation, and we can get some more information to you if you guys want that.
Just, we've always kept our records more as Class A, Class B, Class C, so we have to adjust how those records are to fit the new breakdown that this implementation carries. And so that's just what's taking a little longer than I'm sure everyone would like.
No, and we understand that. I mean, this has been a moving target. I mean, I think we, it's interesting that they waited till like literally when the legislature ended to move this forward, because I think we all thought it was getting delayed longer, and then, interesting timing and quick timing, and then, like I said, I think we all thought too, once the hearing was happened, they were still gonna delay, but not so much. So, thank you.
Thank you.
This is gonna have a major effect on what you do.
Yes, it is. So let us know if you need anything else.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. Okay, so I think, Melanie? Hi, nice to see you now at the end of the table. You're gonna do a presentation for us, or
Yeah, so
discussion.
just very brief for you, just wanted to bring your attention to the fact that on your consent agenda, you will see a resolution to set the public hearing for the surplus sale of the helicopter for 2 weeks from now, March 26th. Planning to auction that off with GovDeals.
And then just also to confirm, there was confusion last week. The commission is paid by the buyer, so it's an add-on to the bid. It does not come to us. We do not pay.
That's paid directly to GovDeals.
And the GovDeals contract is also on your consent agenda this afternoon.
Okay, that's on this afternoon.
Yep.
So then, as we look at that, I know we had talked about, we were wanting to wait till we surplus this before we purchase the next one, but if the price continues to go up, I'm just trying to figure out at what point, do we know when that as purchasing, have you guys looked into when that price would go up?
I haven't been told when that was, sorry, just coming in.
I believe as of last week, I don't
know that the sheriff's office knew exactly, but they were the ones that had received that communications. But we can follow up with Chief Ellis and find out if he has an exact date on that, so we can get that on your agenda.
Okay. I think so, because if it's gonna be another couple $100,000, it's gonna be one of those. I don't wanna pay more if we don't need to pay more. I know we're trying to figure out how it's all working, but
Yeah, we'll follow up with Chief Ellis and get back to you on that.
since it's been talked about in theory, it would be good to know what the date is certain for that.
That was it?
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you.
We're still about 10 minutes early. Is there any other miscellaneous items? Commissioner Coast, do you want to?
Oh, letter. Yeah, if you want to. I think we all received the email from, well, maybe, did everybody receive the email from Mayor Cooper? Jerry Cooper?
I don't think I got the email.
Okay. So she requested, at least a letter for us and is asking that we sort of, amend our zoning codes to allow this Connex box project for the fire victims. These Connex boxes are essentially the shipping containers that they're converting into temporary homes. Because that is a temporary structure, it only currently under our code would have a maximum time frame to occupy it of 12 months. That's 6 months with an additional 6-month extension. She feels that is too short of a timeline and is asking for the victims of these fires that we come up with some way to allow that to go beyond the 12 months because I guess the funds that they're gonna use to help pay for some of these Connex boxes is gonna run through the long-term recovery group. And she says the long-term recovery group is unwilling to pay for the Connex boxes if the essentially maximum life would only be 12 months. And so at this point, all she was asking was for a letter to essentially state that we will move in the direction of amending our zoning code to allow these Connex boxes to be used beyond the 12 months. And so that's the copy of the letter here that Jessica Pilgrim drafted for us. So do you have anything else to add? We got the email over the weekend, so very condensed timeline. She says she wants the letter by Wednesday, tomorrow, so she can present it to the long-term recovery group on Thursday, so they can take a vote to fund the Connex box. So very condensed timeline, so we do apologize for that.
So I'm gonna go to Commissioner French first and then Jessica.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Kearns and I have talked about this item a number of times over the weekend, and he did reach out to staff yesterday and stuff. So I fully support what he's presenting so that we can assist these victims of the fire to try and recover with the least cost possible until they can get into a permanent structure. So I know that these are temporary facilities. They're meant to be temporary, but I think it's up to us to define what temporary is. And if we can extend the time period to allow these folks the time to recover, that would be not only the compassionate thing to do, but I think the right thing to do. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. All we noticed in our code was that there was that slight block, as Commissioner Kearns mentioned, in the zoning code that basically just allowed one extension. But when we reviewed the building code, it had the 6 months and then it has the building official is authorized to grant extensions for demonstrated cause. So all we're proposing is a zoning text amendment to just match that same language in the zoning code, and it should give the discretion to the planning director then to be able to extend it beyond that 6 months. And I did a brief review of our comprehensive plan and see anything that conflicted, and then, like I said, it already matches the development regulations we have for buildings, so I don't see any other issue with that. So we would, if the board approves, you would sign this letter of support, and then Scott Chesney would move forward with the zoning text amendment, and it would go through that process as per the usual.
Thanks for bringing this forward. I think it's a good idea, so I'm happy to sign it. Just curious, how long does it take to approve a text amendment?
Sure, so the very minimum would be 60 days usually, and that's because you have to give Commerce 60 days notice. You can expedite that though, for development regulations, which is what this is considered. So it really just be a matter of as quick as we can get the paperwork together, and I know Scott Chesney's working on that as well.
Does it have to go through planning commissions?
Yes, yeah.
Is there a need to expedite the time frame, or are we good with the 6 months as it is?
Mayor Cooper indicated that the letter just stating our intent to move was enough for the long-term recovery group. So as long as we can get it done before the 6 months expires, which sounds like we can do, it would be good.
Commissioner French?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but aren't we still operating under a state of emergency with regard to the fires? And doesn't that state of emergency allow us some additional flexibility with regard to adopting these kind of ordinances?
Yes, and we could also do an emergency ordinance. I just don't know that it's necessary in this case. And that usually ends up being a lot more work just because you're implementing it and you're declaring the emergency and then you end up having to do it anyhow. And in this case, Mayor Cooper indicated that all she needed was the letter and then we can get the rest done in 60 days. So I think we can do it the traditional path and just still be fast. But if not, we do have that as a backup plan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this then, I just wanted to make sure I understood what you said. This language matches the language in the zoning code related to buildings.
So this, it matches the language in the building code. So there's the
In the building code when it talks about temporary structures.
Yes, and that's, so I cut and pasted that in the letter. That's the, International Building Code is the 108.1. That's the language that's down there. And so it uses the exact same language and it's on the second page, I think, where it talks about the 180 days and then it says the building official is authorized to grant. So that's already in the IBC, so we just use the same language and we're gonna do it in the zoning code.
You don't see any unintended consequences, not related to fire victims, but other folks who maybe put up temporary structures that remain for a long time.
The intent was giving the discretion to the planning director for the demonstrated cause would give him the discretion to say this is not the intended cause, basically. So there's always that concern, but you have to have that demonstrated cause.
Okay, that's good. Thank you for working on that so quickly.
Absolutely.
Okay, so since we do want to sign this letter now, I would take a motion and then I will open it up for public comment after we have a motion on the floor.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the drafting and signing of a letter to be signed by by the chair or a majority of the board at other than open public meeting in regards to amending the Spokane County zoning code related to temporary structures. That letter be sent to the Spokane Regional Long-Term Recovery Group as well as Mayor Terry Cooper, Mayor of Medical Lake.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second for the signing of this letter. I do need to open it up for public testimony since we are taking an action. Is there anyone online or anyone in the conference room? Second call for anyone wishing to testify. If you are online, please raise your hand or *9 if you're on your phone. Seeing no one, third and final call for anyone wishing to testify on this letter that we'll be signing. Okay, seeing no one online or in the room, I will close the open public testimony and call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes unanimously. Thank you, and we will sign this letter. Start the process. And Commissioner French, can we use your stamp?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
And I also have a miscellaneous item when you get to it.
Okay, let's go ahead and take that, and then we're gonna go to the last item on our agenda. But go ahead and do your miscellaneous first.
Yeah, I've been requested by Eastern Washington University to issue a proclamation similar to what we did last year. I believe the proclamation language has been distributed. And so if If you have any questions, we can certainly try and field them. Otherwise, this is the similar to what we did last year, and they're asking for us to do the proclamation again. Thank you.
Giving Joy Day.
Okay, so it's Giving Joy Day in honor of Eastern Washington University's 142nd birthday, and it's in memorable contributions to our region. I think we can head nods to move forward with that. Okay?
Yes, it is
Awesome.
nodding.
We will move forward with that. Thank you very much, Commissioner French.
Thank you.
Okay, so then that's gonna take us to item 2I on our agenda, which is Jeff McMorris and John Colton. Thank you for joining us, and go ahead and get you guys going. It's like right on time at 11 o'clock.
Okay, look at us, we can manipulate a time clock.
Just like you do it now.
So, first some good news, President Biden signed half of the federal budgets, recently. It's not half the dollar amount, but it's 6 of the 12 budgets, smaller half fiscally. And that did include the $4.5 million request the county made for the Four Lakes interchange. So that funding is now available to us once we jump through all the appropriate hoops. John and I were just on the phone with Kyle. One thing that we'll just flag for you to bring up is these funds do require a 20% match. So between the 3 million last year and the 4.5 million this year, you know, we're needing some matching funds. And so that's something you can't use federal for federal, so we'll need to probably work with some of our state partners and look at other opportunities there. So good news on the past budget. Ron, can you see if Kyle or Matt Zerkor is on for some of these conversations? They were gonna be available, and then is Rick on? You have to promote him.
Make it.
Commissioner French, I see you raised your hand.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I do want to point out that in the other grant, we were able to allocate part of that local match through S3R3, and that it's an infrastructure project that benefits the West Plains PDA. And so I know that Chris Pingra and Matt Zerkor are working on that arrangement as well. So that would be another opportunity for the additional federal money if we needed to go back to S3R3 for additional participation. I'm sure that we could probably get some participation from them. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you, sir. So today, John and his team and I have been going back and forth, kind of running trap lines down the list of projects on the infrastructure. By way of reminder, there was Sullivan Road at 32nd in the valley, Wall Street up near Whitworth, and Market Street towards the north end of the city and into, I guess, out of the city. So those are the three. We've also done work around the Crisis Stabilization Center and the possibility of expanding a under 24-hour sobering center there. So those are the 4 one-pagers that you have in front of you. Some of the issues are 2 of these, Saltese and Market, are not on the STIP. What is the STIP?
State transportation. Nice acronym.
It's an acronym. The Senate, you go back to the page we had on Senate rules and House rules a few weeks ago. The Senate will not look at transportation projects that are not on the STIP. So of those 3, Sullivan at 32nd and the Saltese, Wall and Market. Wall is the only one eligible for the Senate because of the STIP requirement. All 3 are eligible for the House on that they're on our 6-year CIP, but the House has the federal nexus requirement. And, we could make some federal nexus arguments. Would they be as strong as other projects that the House is looking at? That could be debatable. So those are some challenges around that at this point.
We're also getting some more breakdown of numbers around the stabilization center. But let's start with infrastructure based on the House Senate rules. Which direction do you want us to go, or do you want us to explore some other options?
Well, I think just hearing that, I mean, if it's not on this, if those are requirements, I mean, we wanna put a project forward that has a good opportunity of getting funding, and so then these would not.
The Wall Street is on the STIP. So that's one to consider on the Senate side.
Could you explain how does a project get on the STIP? Yeah, did we take action to?
No, I think, doesn't it have to go through SRTC?
Yeah.
Yes, that's accurate.
So, yeah.
Got it.
It's gotta go through SRTC.
Okay.
I will also say from the House side, while Rob,
On SRTC?
It's coming up. Commissioner French, I'm sorry, you unmuted, so.
Well, I just wanted to respond to your question, Madam Chair. Yes, the SRTC adopts a list of priority projects as part of the STIP. I think we do it every other year. And so, but yeah, we did, I think either at the end of last year or first part of this year, we did adopt that list.
So we'll just wanna make sure that we work to get these on that in the future. So, okay, so go ahead, Jeff.
So based on that, I mean, at this point, do we want to take Sullivan and mark it out of contention? Or do we think it would be wise to? Let me rephrase it. I don't think we want to.
So confirm, we're taking Saltese off and we're taking Market off, and that leaves us with Wall, but Wall does it have a federal nexus?
Well, on the Senate side, you don't need a federal nexus. On the House side, you need a federal nexus. So as we look at which project we advocate to which member of the delegation, Wall Street could be either senator, it would be qualify on the Senate side. I think Wall Street's nexus is about as weak as Saltise's, or comparable, I guess would be a better word to say. And so I don't think he's ever have a super strong federal nexus unless y'all have some ideas.
because it's in there. There's a federal nexus with ETC.
On Wall Street, okay, just say it out
Okay,
loud.
so it is in an area of the county, it's considered disadvantaged in the transportation cost burden category by USDOT's Equitable Transportation Community Explorer mapping tool. So that's helpful. You also have got, commodity transport, there's a transit aspect, you've got safety, of course, congestion, which can play into climate, economic development. There are things we can communicate about it. And I would say of the three, it also has the strongest federal nexus.
Another.
You guys may not like this, but then do we go back to the Fairchild?
We were just talking about that before we walked in.
I'm sure that would make Commissioner French very happy, but I mean, that has a strong federal nexus. It's, even though the base isn't gonna be ready for it by the time if we got this in, construction, we're gonna be
Couple years
a couple
out.
years out.
You wanna share your conversation
Yeah.
with the base?
So I talked to, and they're not speaking officially on behalf of,
Right.
especially because I just don't want to I did talk to the wing commander and Jeff Johnson, and they had indicated because of the timing, it'll probably be, maybe another year before we get funding from the time of announcement from the committee and then construction. I mean, they will have time to put all these things together. At least they would provide a letter of support is the point, which would be incredibly helpful for our application. So incredibly strong federal nexus, letters of support from DoD. I could see it being very competitive especially on the House side.
It would require, if we got a 5 million, another million in match, which Kyle was bringing up. You know, money doesn't grow on trees, as we all know, so we also have to keep in that, where are our matching funds coming from?
But any of these would require a match.
Pretty much all the infrastructure, transportation is gonna be about a 20% match.
And I will say notification, at least out of subcommittee, would happen before the start of next session. So we would have the opportunity, to lobby for ourselves at the state level. Say, hey, we have this federal money pending, but we need to match. So.
So that could be another option, that the Fairchild, Thorpe Road, second base access point on the house side with the federal nexus, Wall Street on STIP on the Senate side, and we'd still have the stabilization center project, which could also be on the Senate side. And you can make some federal nexuses also with the stabilization center, I'm sure, on other programs if that's outgoing.
Well, and that will only be eligible on the Senate side.
Oh, that's right, because that bill isn't open on the House.
Right.
Yeah, so stabilization has to be on the Senate side because Labor, Health and Human Services is not an open budget on the House side. A lot of if-thens when it comes to this.
Need a chart.
I've got my cheat sheet here and I'm still forgetting stuff.
Next session, we're gonna break down the 12 appropriations bills in Congress.
We gonna,
Yes.
get
This
up
will be a
on
whiteboard, yep.
a whiteboard
Do
exercise.
the dot exercise and that's what we're asking for.
This is
Meets
a bill
all the
of,
points.
this is a bill of feelings, this is a bill of funding.
Okay, let's see, Commissioner French and
Yeah, as we are looking for the local match money with regard to the Thorpe, Craig Road interchange or intersection, that would also be a project that I think the airport would be very invested into because it is of its proximity to the transload facility. So I think they would also represent a partner to be able to come up with that local match.
Okay.
Is that road on the STIP?
Yes, I believe it is.
Yes. Yeah, it is.
So are we liking the idea of going forward, doing a little bit more due diligence around Wall, Thorpe at Fairchild, and the stabilization center?
Seems to make sense.
Sounds good.
yeah,
Can I make a recommendation? I would say for the Crisis Stabilization Center, so we're not competing against another project, perhaps it would make the most sense to apply to both senators for that project and then keep either of the transportation infrastructure asks on the House side. I think that probably gives us the best chance to potentially get two projects. That would be what I would do.
I think that sounds appropriate. Commissioner French?
Yeah, keep in mind well, thank you, Madam Chair. Keep in mind that, we already have in the queue eliminating the double 90 there at Thorpe Craig. And if we could get additional funding to be able to do the improvements to Thorpe, to the gate of Fairchild, both of those projects could be combined together and we might be able to get some economies of scale by having both projects done as opposed to having to pay for double amortization and everything else to do the project separately. So there might be some synergies to combining those two projects together. Thank you.
And to your point, Commissioner, Kyle was looking at if we did get another 5 to go with the 3, like how far further north could you go towards Highway 2 and kind of see how big you could build that out with additional funding. So we'll get more info on that.
Do we have a timeline though to spend those dollars that were targeted towards Craig Road? I know transportation has longer timelines with feds, but
Yes, I'll have to get back to you on what that is unless Kyle knows right off.
We
Kyle?
do, I have to confirm, but I believe it's the end of 26. It's part of our award letter, once we jump through all the hoops and go through the portal. But it is not the typical 1 year. We actually have some time because it's transportation.
Would this be part of the Four Lakes raise application next year? And if so, would it buy down that request, or are these just separate components of infrastructure?
Really, for raise, we're gonna need the state involved. So we're gonna be meeting with the head of WashDOT later this week to start some conversations with that. We need to bring in the big state dollars for that.
But I mean, if we were to go after the Thornton money, would that buy down what our request would be in raise? I just don't know if that piece is a part of that, or if we can even answer that.
The intersection's a huge ask in its own right.
So with regard to the state legislature, as I indicated before, we already prepped the legislature back in August with regard to the Four Lakes project. And so I think that we can anticipate that there'll be some participation from the state in being able to move that project forward. And I think we've already talked about the 200,000 that was finally allocated by the legislature the second time on Four Lakes and 904. So I think there's enough energy and enough awareness about that interchange to where getting some participation from the state is probably a reasonable expectation.
I guess I just want to reconfirm that, based on John's, thoughts, that we would put the stabilization center forward to the two senators and the transportation projects would go to the House. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And then on the
So
stabilization.
just a second, I just want to make sure that we're in agreement on that. Okay, so we're in agreement on that. Go ahead.
And John believes we can get a 2-year window on the stabilization funds, which would be needed for Public Works to be vacating. It'd be a very tight window to spend the money if it's a 1 year. Tight enough it probably wouldn't actually exist in the end. It's about a 4-month window, best case scenario. And we all know projects right now, so we are confirming that 2-year window.
Well, yeah, because I mean, if you're moving out desks next week, right, I mean, you've still got time until the next appropriations bill is even passed before that shot clock starts. So you've got plenty of time there, and then even if it was just a year for construction, which it would be even more, you'll have plenty of time. I think the only outstanding information piece that we have to know, we did get a price per square foot. We just have to have the more granular breakdown so that we can provide the appropriations form. I talked to one Senate office. They said we don't have to have bids, just a general knowledge of kind of what this breakdown cost would be.
I'm gonna go to Chris Jordan then.
I was gonna ask on the price of stabilization, do we feel like we're on a good track to have a kind of rough budget or whatever is needed? And then do we think that we could get support from the city in terms of endorsing that, or perhaps putting some opioid dollars in, anything along those lines to make it more of a joint partnership?
Yes and yes.
Very good.
We have looked with Justin and I are estimating about it, probably 10 to 12 million dollar project. So, 5 would be your maximum most likely. So you would need opioid or mental health or something else. Thankfully, those are sources that we actually have funds available on. Could also make the request stronger that we have such a 50% or better match available with local funds.
So we're gonna ask for the full 5 million.
That would be my suggestion.
Yeah, I just wanna make sure for the commissioners, they're tracking the timing of this. A number of us had met last week and talked about kind of the domino effect. So Kyle's team, of course, is working on the new public works facility over at the Wilbur Vault. His timeline, and Kyle, correct correct me if I misstate, his timeline is targeting end of Q3, September-ish timeframe for completing the construction to be able to move people over. There may be an opportunity to start moving people over as early as June, but that's soft and squishy. So that was kind of informing us of, well, if we ask for a 1 year, or if we ask for monies that have to be spent by October of 25, that's not doable. We don't want to turn money back. If we can get 2 years of a time window to spend it, then we're positioned well because we can start working on how we're going to procure the services, doing the design work, and being ready to launch construction by the time Kyle's team moves out in that late summer timeframe. So I think it's really critical for us to make sure that if it's only a 1 year, I don't think we want to apply for it. We will be turning money back. As far as the detail, John, we haven't even started. The commissioners haven't even said go on a design effort on this stuff. So is it truly, if it's 650 a square foot, is it 650 a square foot multiplied by the size of the facility we need? And that's as much detail as is required for the ask?
Right. I mean, we'll have to ask the Senate. So two things. Number one, we'll get it in writing in terms of timing, because yes, we will have plenty of time. We're not gonna be pressed. I will get detail on how granular we need to be. But yeah, I mean, people know, the federal government knows that we can't start this process until we have money to do it. So we only get so far down the road. But we'll have all that in writing.
I mean, I think the commissioners certainly, sorry, Mr. French, go ahead.
No, go ahead and finish.
I think certainly the commissioners could say, we're going to start the process because we do have, if they've identified this as a priority with opioid funds and possibly some mental health dollars, we certainly can and probably should get going on a design effort and determining which construction methodology we're going to use for it. So, but it's just a matter of timing about how much detail is needed. And then how much work we have to do in advance. If it's just high level estimates, I think we can have something together. If it's more granular, it's gonna take some time for us to do that. I mean, I'm not
This is
talking
due April
weeks.
1st.
Yes, so it has to be high level. We will not have granular information. I'm just making that statement.
No problem.
And we'll work closely in the next 2 weeks to, all the conversations
Second,
I've
Commissioner
had. You know, I mean, there's pots of money for design only, so I think, the feds do understand those things.
Commissioner French.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I think Scott answered my question in his comments because I started to lose track of, are we talking about the stabilization facility or are we still talking about transportation? And he's clearly talking about stabilization. So I'm stable now, thank you.
There you go. Okay, and so on the stabilization, this again, I just want to double check. This is a 16-bed facility again, that we can't go beyond 16 beds for the 23 hour.
Right.
But just like the other,
It's 16 beds, is it? I thought it was.
I thought he said up to 20. I don't think
Yeah.
this is under that
It's
16
not.
bed rule because it's not an overnight stay.
I'm trying to look at this quickly and I wasn't seeing.
I don't
We
think
need
that's
more.
flat-
Yeah.
fleshed out.
Well, and
Specifics on
these wouldn't be classified as the crisis stabilization beds, so,
So
which are the only ones we're capped on, yeah, these were the sobering
Okay.
beds.
detox, yeah.
Okay.
Which, I don't know if there's any
I
limit on
wasn't seeing
those,
a
is there?
bed.
I don't know, I have to go through the.
Well,
David
Justin, can you see if Justin might be on, Ron? But Justin said a lot of this is actually a chair facility, like you're actually not in beds because it's not an overnight facility. And so, and I believe he was talking 20, I'm pretty sure he said we're not under that 16
Right,
bed rule
because
because we're not in
We
beds.
talked about it, people being able to admit themselves, not just through
Yeah,
fire
walk-
and
walk-ups.
emergency.
There's Justin.
Hey, answer all our questions, Justin.
Good morning, everyone.
Thanks for
Yes.
joining us. You're hearing our questions, right?
Yes, so the 23-hour Crisis Relief Center, which is a new facility created by Department of Health, does not have the 16-bed IMD exclusion requirements. And so really the facility is a 23-hour and 59-minute expectation for stabilization and including for sobering. Sobering is a subset of services that do not require the same level of requirement for an inpatient bed facility. So as we begin looking at what the requirements are, there is definitely greater expandability of the facility. And to the point that was made, They call it a chair facility because they do allow for individuals to move between available beds, like sobering if they need to lay down, or to sit in a chair and receive ongoing support services. Now, there is some question on whether or not they could then walk away and they come back and then the 23 hours restarts. But really that implementation of services circles around that 23-hour, 59-minute stabilization period.
Thank you, and like you're thinking a $10 million estimate is appropriate, I guess, as long as we have you on the line?
Well, looking at, because we did talk to some other providers who've been doing this, as well as King County, who's starting this from the ground up. They estimate it takes about $20 million from their existing one to take a non-existent building and bring it to the ground up right now. That's what they're estimating. And again, they have not gotten bids, so they want to be clear on this. That's not an official estimate, but hearing from behind the scenes, 20 to 25, depending on their expanded use of beds, and their facility would be much bigger than what we're envisioning in terms of the availability. So we think 10 million is a reasonable estimate, not only for the need to create spaces, especially for medical assistance and resource support. Really, we want this to be an expansive facility for people to walk in, to talk to a case manager, maybe see medical, and then walk out. We think that's reasonable, especially as we look at the existing costs with inflation.
So, and one question I have, Justin, is if we do this and provide these people the 23 hours and 59 minutes, do they have an opportunity then to transfer from that facility into our other stabilization facility, or does that have to stay separate? I guess that's one question I just wanted to make sure I understood.
Yeah, no, the beauty of this facility allows for how easy someone can move between facilities. So let's say someone's discharging from the jail. This was something that allows for them to walk immediately in and receive services that would allow them to be stabilized and transition back into the community, including psychopharmacology, allowing to see an ARNP and get on medication where they may not be discharged with the full amount or they need to get it adjusted. It also allows individuals to walk in or be immediately dropped off by law enforcement, stabilized where they are either have the medical questions removed or are more voluntary on wanting to go into the facility, and then they can be assessed for medical necessity. The challenge we have right now is when law enforcement involves them in the field, they have a couple choices. ER, if they're not sure the individual can be assessed and meet milieu, or if they meet all the requirements, drop them off at the facility. This allows another avenue and increases the likelihood of them being able to be referred directly from the street into an inpatient facility.
So then this really helps alleviate the congestion in the hospital emergency rooms as well.
I would say it not only benefits the reduction in ERs, but also benefits for those that are not quite determined in the field whether or not they want to seek treatment, and allows that constant 23-hour conversation to allow them easy access. What we are, again, the challenge we have is medical necessity. It's hard to get someone to stay long enough to assess them to get into SRSE. This expands that window, and I believe we have a greater opportunity to actually get more people into SRSE.
Just want to emphasize, very, very, very high level estimate, $10 to $12 million. A lot of that depends on, we've got a building over there that may or may not be able to be repurposed depending on the size that's needed. It may be a tear down and build back up. So we have a lot of work to do on coming up with a reasonable, but that's just our dartboard right now. It's based on the size of what King County's doing, based on our estimate that we received from.
So I talked to Gil.
Yeah, he got something from a.
He talked to the firm that built out the current stabilization center, and to build to that medical treatment grade, which would be a similar service treatment need, in today's dollars is $625 a square foot.
Which gets us about a 20,000 square foot facility. So that's
So that's just
fully
the capital,
outfitted.
that's just the capital.
That's the capital.
Okay.
I know that Justin's been presenting to us about opioid dollars, and so that's an ongoing conversation in terms of priorities. But to Scott's question about kind of moving forward with the more granular detail, what do we need to make that happen? It seems like this is a concept that all 5 commissioners are in favor of. So I'm just asking the question of what do we need to do to start getting a little bit more specific, separate and apart from the earmark timeline?
Yeah, just if you separate that out, if the commissioners said, hey, yes, we want to move forward with a planning effort on being prepared to go for construction, I think one of the considerations that the board would want to look at is, I think it's another good candidate for an alternative delivery project. And I think we'd have to go through and begin assembling like an owner's rep and all those sorts of resources to be able to build an application, to go in front of the PRC, to seek approval, and then from there if you get approval, then you go out for, and Kyle will be able to know this much more than I, depending on what they recommend, GCCM, alternative, or a progressive design build, just a design build, then we'd have an idea of what our assembly of a team would look like, and so that's probably the first step, is to determine whether we want to do an alternative delivery. I think few of us talked internally and probably feel like that's a good candidate to do. But the first step would probably be getting an owner's rep on board.
Or seeing if we can get federal funding to help us.
Yeah.
So I see it as, moving forward, as long as we have enough information for you, John, to at least see if we can get $5 million. I happened to be at a meeting yesterday with the mayor on Broadlink, and she caught me afterwards and said she would be very supportive of this. I don't know with dollars or not, but that it was just a quick conversation, but she would be very supportive of wanting to support this, because I think we all know it would help our community. So that's what I know there. So I think at least we've got to try to see if we can get additional funding to help us. Because I hate to use all of our opioid dollars to start with.
Yeah.
But anyway, who would like to go first? Go please.
No, I think it would be important to get a letter of support from the city, from the mayor, the council. I don't know our time frame and how quickly we need to move.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they'd be able to take action to decide on a particular dollar amount, but I do think it's worth asking if they would put some of their opioid settlement dollars towards this, like match some of ours. But it's good to hear that she's interested in supporting it, so I think a letter of support would go far with our senators.
And we can talk to some of the appropriations staff over this week to make sure that we have all the detail we need. So that might be more of a public works conversation. We can just have some internal conversations and then present to the board as soon as we have findings, if that would be most helpful.
Commissioner Jordan.
I was just gonna say, I think it's fair to say we're a little bit ahead of the city in developing opioid priorities and getting recommendations from staff, but I'm hearing that they are going to be working on that very soon. So I think the time is ripe to really reach out and say, can you join us in this project?
So, John, what else do you need from, you're gonna do some more work. I'm just making sure, is there anything else you need from us?
So did we decide on, stepping back,
I'm not sure what we decided, but
no, it's fine.
Let's go for it, let's try it.
Given the time is short, the president's budget just came out, which is going to motivate the House, and of course, Senator Murray will probably be opening up her portal very soon too. I think it will be a very, very fast burn. So to that end, I think we're doing all the due diligence for the Senate side for Senator Murray, because it will be very, very similar questions. That said, we should probably, not to put anyone on the spot, I don't know if that's regular order, but probably figure out if we want to do Fairchild or Wall, and then any internal work that needs to happen there, but we should be socializing with the Congresswoman's office really soon.
Okay, so I think we decided we're gonna do this project with both the senators, correct?
Yep.
Okay, so then now we're back to transportation.
Yep.
And so instead of putting both projects forward, you think we need to put one project forward?
I mean, and that's,
Is that what I'm hearing you say?
At least rank them.
At least
Yeah.
rank them? I would, no, this is just me, so everyone else can like weigh in, but I would think we need to rank Fairchild number 1 and Wall number 2, because I think of the federal nexus. But, I mean, just like we took the others off because they don't meet the criteria and we wanna have the best opportunity. So that would be my recommendation, Commissioner French.
Madam Chair, I think you nailed it.
Thank you. Any other thoughts?
It makes sense. Leave it that way.
I know, it's tough, because I hate to see Saltese drop off entirely, which, we all have our districts, but yeah, I wanna give us the best shot to get the funding.
So for the Fairchild project, we'll ask for a letter of support from the base. Like is SCR 3 in the airport, 2 others, other ideas on,
West
like
Plains
GSI
Chamber,
would do one.
West Plains Chamber, the, I don't know, if any mayors of, West Plains cities.
so I think in Cantwell's portal, you can only submit 3.
Yeah, some will do more, some limit.
Yeah.
Everybody has a little nuance.
I think after she got like 800 requests and people decided to do extra homework.
Okay.
So let me get to Commissioner French.
Yeah, if, I'm just wondering if maybe even a joint letter between the city of Airway Heights and Medical Lake might not be a bad idea, because both those communities will benefit from that second gate, because it'll reduce the amount of congestion and stuff that'll happen out there as they try and eliminate the traffic going through the main gate and stuff. So I can reach out to both mayors and see if them issuing a joint letter, if we can only issue one. Otherwise, I know that both of them would do their individual, but if we're limited on the number of letters, then I'd do a joint letter.
I think a joint letter is a good idea to get more bang for your
Yeah,
buck.
I think so too.
So we have mayors, I think the base would be a high priority. Number 3,
SIA,
the airport.
I think the airport.
yep.
Okay, so we will, and then for the stabilization center, we have the city of Spokane, we've discussed. What would other be high priorities? A couple other additional.
Let's see, Justin, are you still on? If there's. Oh, we had to jump off. Okay,
What about,
go ahead.
what about hospitals or, if it's a diversionary from
Yeah.
the ER,
Justin,
Providence?
yeah, your thoughts on additional letters of support? Commissioner Jordan was just saying the hospitals.
I think, yes, they would be a great partner, especially since we just wrote them some letters of support for the Department of Commerce. We also might want first responders, if there was ability for the sheriff to also write one as well. That might demonstrate a commitment to the various partners in the field.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Okay, so
Okay.
we'll work on those.
Awesome. I have a meeting with the sheriff tomorrow, so happy to ask.
Thank you.
Just meetings all the time, right?
Put it on his list.
Okay, is there anything else?
I have one separate miscellaneous if we're done with this.
John, do you have all your questions answered?
No, I think this is good.
Just
I have
making
lots
sure.
of notes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for working with us. I know this is like the first time going through this process this way, so appreciate your efforts with us and walking us through it.
Yeah, no, it's been great. Thanks everyone.
And it's all uploaded on YouTube if you need to go back.
Outstanding.
There you
To
go.
see what we said, it's all recorded, it's on
Exactly.
YouTube.
Great.
Yeah.
So that's all the members' offices, just so they have some watch ahead.
I love it.
Great. And then available all week if anyone has any questions or anything, and we'll work together.
Okay.
Great, that's all.
Thank you, John. Of course. Okay, Jeff, miscellaneous, you're miscellaneous, because then we're almost done.
So, you'll recall 6-12 months ago, we did a letter of support for inland paper for our conservation project between Spokane and Spirit Lake. We have another request for same type of project. That project has not yet made it all the way through the process, your first project. However, this project would not be competing because it's a different bucket of money that came under the Infrastructure Reduction Act. And so it's non-competitive. This is Stimson Lumber. They have about 190,000 acres across 3 states that they're looking to put in, which is a huge project by these standards. It's kind of a one-time opportunity because of the additional COVID funds that were flowing to a lot of different buckets. Each state has to apply separately.
So they're wanting to put it in for what?
It's the Federal Forest Service Managed Conservation easement, where the forest lands remain in forest production, but they're also open for hunting, recreation, generally any non-motorized, if it's beyond a gate. Some places you can have motorized. So a lot of, the big timber companies open their property for recreational purposes. This is a permanent easement that gets placed over the property to allow both the managed forest usage as well as the recreational aspects. They're asking for a letter of support like we did with Woodland Paper. They're 193,000 acres across the 3 states. Each state applies separately. 88,000 acres are in Washington State. Most are Pend Oreille-Stevens. 3,000 acres are in Spokane County. So we're a very small portion in the northeast corner of Elk area. About 400 of these acres actually burned in the fire to get you location. Each state can only put forward 1 application. And I guess our main competition would be coming out of Klickitat County down in the Columbia River Gorge. However, Stimson Lumber, of these 2 projects that we're aware of, is they're offering to pay for all the private sector matches required, where the other proposal isn't at this point. So this one's considered to be a good chance of getting through the process. They need their letter of support by early April. It goes to Hillary Franz in that office in April, and then the state will choose 1 project that goes to the feds, and that's competitive at that level too. I sent you all an email yesterday that has more details and pretty colored maps. Bottom line is, would you like to see a proposed letter come before you at a future meeting, have an official letter of support in the application project?
Seeing head nods. I don't see Commissioner French head nods,
Yes.
but 4 of us in the room.
There he is.
There he is.
See that,
Okay.
so-
Head nod. Love
Is he
it.
rocking it? Have some
So,
music in the back.
I will work on that.
So yeah, is there a way to get, okay, because you need it by when?
They would like, they need it this month. And the people from Trust for Public Lands who are working with Stimson Lumber, as well as an individual from Stimson, is happy to come to a meeting, Zoom in and answer any and all questions.
I see Patrick's in the still here. Is there a way to get like a draft out by Friday that we can put on the consent agenda for Tuesday?
Yeah, because we have the letter we did last time, so we have a template to follow.
Okay.
The organization has one already.
I would say let's just go ahead and everybody review it by Friday. Like if we get it by Friday, then you've got the weekend to review it. If there's any changes, and we'll just put it on the 2 o'clock consent agenda.
Would you like any of these people available for comment, or are you good to go?
I'm good to go.
Okay, they've sent us a template. I will fill in the blanks. And we'll have to give it to Gina.
It's in the email he sent us yesterday.
Yes.
Okay, so if anyone has any issues with that, and then we'll have it Friday to send out for the consent agenda. So that puts the onus on us to get any comments back to you by Thursday night.
Perfect. I'll work with
So,
Gina.
and then we can just
message
save a
received.
spot.
Jeff, your email indicated that they had presented to both Pend Oreille and Stevens counties.
They have presented to Pend Oreille. They are presenting to Stevens today.
Okay, do we know where Pend Oreille stands on, I mean, are they?
Pend
supportive of
Oreille
it?
did not take a vote, but they fully expect letters from both counties.
Okay,
Similar to, there was land, I think, in that last project that went into Pend Oreille also.
okay.
So we have no reason to think there won't be, but I can run those trap lines and get those responses for you.
Okay, thank you. Any other miscellaneous? I just was informed that we have one executive session that will take about 5 minutes.
Yep, under acquisition, lease of real estate, RCW 4230, 110-1B. 5 minutes, no action. In addition to the commissioners, myself, Randy Bischoff, Jeff McMorris, and Jessica. Jessica.
Our attorney for the day.
Just wasn't sure who it was gonna be. Okay,
I love it.
so
Okay, so we'll be going to executive session for 5 minutes. For this purpose, just stated with the people in attendance. Excuse me. We will be adjourning after that for the morning, and we'll see everybody back for our 2 o'clock consent agenda. Thank you.